some of it. It was actually still going on this morning when I was coming into work about an hour ago. Lots of lightning. Yeah.
And without those blackout curtains, that's quite a bright.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
It's a show. Thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Let's get to what's coming up in the program today. In the first hour of the show, they've received their white coats. Now they're on the road to being physicians. We're going to meet some of Manitoba's newest medical students. In addition to serious matters, we're going to dive into a new report about childcare across the country. We'd have a Manitoba lens on that story, so stay tuned for that. A little bit later in the program, a story about family identity and finding home. We're going to talk to a local author, a Métis author, about her experience growing up in a Mennonite family. She's written quite a memoir. Stay tuned.
Today on Q.
Having an intervention sucks. Basically just a bunch of people telling you everything that's wrong with you to your face.
I'm Jill Deacon in for Tom Power. Comedian Andrew Barr is about to record his first comedy special, The 13th Hour. He'll talk about his decision to spend the 12 hours beforehand running on a treadmill as a metaphor for his battle with drugs and alcohol.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israel says it has begun the first phases of a military offensive in Gaza City, and troops have established a foothold on the outskirts of the city. Hundreds of Palestinians are leaving their homes and moving to the northwest part of the city. Margaret Evans has the latest.
Israeli strikes hitting Gaza in the early hours of the morning, drowning out international condemnation as Israel says it is proceeding with a promised ground offensive in Gaza City, the Strip's largest urban center, or what's left of it. A spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces says Israeli troops already control the city's outskirts, and call-up notices have been issued to 60,000 reservists for an operation expected to begin in earnest in September. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres added his voice to those warning of catastrophic implications for Palestinian civilians.
It is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
The Israeli decision, which it says is aimed at rooting out what remains of Hamas and rescuing hostages, has dampened optimism that a 60-day ceasefire might be agreed. Hamas said it would accept the agreement. Israel has yet to formally respond. In an interview with the Associated Press on Wednesday, Washington's pro-settler ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, blamed failed ceasefire talks on countries like Canada that have recently indicated they plan to recognize a Palestinian state. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Explosions are heard in the skies over Kiev overnight. Ukraine's Air Force says Moscow launched its third largest aerial assault this year. It says many of the 570 drones and dozens of missiles were intercepted. At least one person was killed in the western city of Lviv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is accusing Russia of charging ahead like there are no efforts to end the war. The U.S. is currently leading those discussions. German prosecutors say police have arrested a Ukrainian citizen suspected of damaging the Nord Stream pipelines. Those underwater pipelines bring Russian natural gas to Germany, and they were damaged by a series of explosions in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. The suspect is believed to be one of the coordinators of that operation. He was arrested in Italy. Ukraine has rejected suggestions it might have ordered the attack. State senators in Texas are voting today on a controversial measure. It redraws the state's political map to favor Republicans. The Texas lower house approved the plan last night. The CBC's Lisa Shing is in Washington with more. And Lisa, what happened during that vote?
Marcia, after 8 hours of debate and deliberate delay by the Democrats, Texas lawmakers approved these new redrawn, blatantly partisan congressional maps. And that will likely create 5 new Republican seats that would solidify the party's U.S. House majority here in D.C. ahead of next year's midterm elections. And remember, U.S. President Donald Trump had requested this gerrymander. And so if you remember, the dramatic lead up to all of this, in an effort to thwart or delay this plan, the Democrats fled the state. They went to Illinois in order to stall the vote. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, had ordered them arrested. And when the Democrats returned this week, the Speaker had the House chamber doors locked and ordered a police escort so they couldn't leave again. So in opposition to that, several Democratic lawmakers decided to sleep in the chamber rather than have that escort. Here's Jean Wu, the chair of the state's Democratic caucus.
You've watched us take all of this, do all of this for the people, for all Texans, for all Americans. We are standing up and fighting against those who seek to take the American dream from us.
Now, Wu has vowed they'll challenge the map in court when it's officially passed. The Texas State Senate is expected to vote as soon as tonight, and then it's over to Governor Abbott for his promised signature.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Lisa Xing, reporting from Washington. Brazilian federal police say ex-president Jair Bolsonaro may have been looking for political asylum in Argentina. They say they found a draft of a letter to the Argentine president on Bolsonaro's phone. It's unclear if Javier Milei ever received that request for asylum. The document is part of a final police report formally accusing Bolsonaro and his son of working to avoid the law. Bolsonaro is due to stand trial for plotting a coup in September. If he is convicted, he could spend 40 years in prison. Critics in New Brunswick are questioning whether a proposed natural gas plant has the Indigenous buy-in, it claims. The plant has been controversial on a number of fronts. It will be built by an American company. Its executives say the plant will be partly Mi'kmaq-owned, but as Jacques Poitras reports, it now appears that critical First Nations investment is only hypothetical.
North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council is a minority equity holder in the project.
That claim by pro-energy executive Landon Tessner at a July online meeting is a calling card for the proposed 400-megawatt natural gas plant.
All of those discussions were ongoing with the North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council, which ultimately resulted in their equity participation in the project.
New Brunswick's power utility needs the extra electricity the plant would provide, but there's growing opposition, including to the choice of Pro-Energy, a U.S. company, to build it. In response, Premier Susan Holt has pointed to the supposed Indigenous role.
It will be co-owned by a group of different First Nations, a group of different New Brunswick First Nations that have an
So far, though, there is no equity investment by any First Nation.
So I think there was a step missed.
Pabineau First Nation Chief Terry Richardson says the Mi'kmaq agency working with the U.S. company may have moved too quickly. Another group representing all Mi'kmaq bands will run its own rights impact assessment to determine consent and then maybe investment. Richardson supports the plant but says the process has to be right.
If we're looking at nation-building projects, it's important that we have that down, how we're doing this consultation and how we're moving forward so we don't end up with stumbling blocks that cost money and cause bad feelings.
The U.S. company refused to comment. Jacques Poitras, CBC News, Fredericton.
Power crews in southern Alberta are working to get back online after a thunderstorm yesterday. The storm blew through the city of Brooks. Strong winds and hail buckled transmission towers and knocked down power lines. Some vehicles were so damaged they blocked roads. Hurricane Erin is about 300 kilometers southeast of North Carolina, and warnings are in effect along the U.S. East Coast and in Bermuda. Right now, the Category 2 storm is forecast to brush south of Nova Scotia tomorrow. That puts officials there in the rare position of monitoring a hurricane and also focusing on getting wildfires under control. As Olivia Piercy tells us, an organization in Halifax is helping seniors get ready to deal with natural disasters.
Most of us in my building are using wheelchairs, scooters, or walk with a cane. So for them to know what's going on and how to protect themselves.
Joan Curtis is one of about 40 seniors who attended a free disaster readiness course in Halifax this week. She says she's concerned about climate emergencies and wants to be prepared. Recently, in Nova Scotia, a wildfire forced hundreds to evacuate their homes, and the province is monitoring Hurricane Erin, which is expected to bring strong winds to the region. Kathleen Reed organized the event.
I think over the last few years, our seniors have gone through emergencies or had loved ones involved in them, and it's made them go, wait, I'm not ready.
Reed says seniors often have additional needs, like medications, that could be forgotten in a panic. At the seminar, participants came up with action plans for hypothetical scenarios, like evacuations, floods, and power outages. Some in attendance, like Laura Matheson, say it made them feel more capable.
I think everybody should come to an event like this to learn, to be ready, because anything can happen on any particular day.
Attendees left with their own emergency kits, which included flashlights, can openers, and first aid supplies. They were told to add medication lists and copies of important documents once they got home. Olivia Piercy, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good wet morning, everyone. Hopefully the thunder didn't keep you up too late last night. It's still ongoing, actually. Just taking a bit of a pause in downtown Winnipeg. But we've had some thunderstorm watches that have now been issued. Over most of Manitoba, you're seeing some kind of active weather this Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us here on CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. More weather in just a moment. This hour on the program. In other areas of the country, they need this weather right now. We're enjoying it for our wildfires, of course. But what about the East Coast? We're going to look at that this morning. We're also going to look across the country at what fire chiefs continue to call for to make things safer when it comes to wildfires moving forward. So stay tuned. That's coming up. Also, there's a new report out, as you might have heard on World Report, about the $10 a day childcare program all across our provinces. So how is the program going to work? What's happening already and what more needs to be done? We'll have that through a Manitoba lens, of course, because that's where we live. Right now, let's find out more about headlines where we live. Matt Humphrey is in with those. Good morning.
Good morning. The family of a Norwegian hiker who's missing in northern Manitoba say they're grateful to people helping search for him. He left Fort Severn in Ontario on July 25th, saying he would arrive in York Factory last Friday. He did not arrive in York Factory. At the bottom of the hour, we'll hear the latest on the search effort. We know his last GPS ping, as do authorities, obviously, and so do his family in Norway, who have been in contact with Mounties. We'll hear from them at the bottom of the hour. And Daryl Ackman, a.k.a. Mr. Jets TV, who was convicted in 2016 in relation to child sex trafficking and exploiting underage girls, will be allowed to return to the community with new release conditions after his parole suspension was canceled earlier this month. More details at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Wow, is it ever wet out there? They're just trying to see some brightness in the downtown sky where the rain's paused for a moment. But let's get into what is going to happen the rest of the day here. Corey Funk is in with our forecast. Hi, Corey.
I don't know how you slept last night, but that thunder was shook my house.
Oh, I had a hard time because I was having a great sleep and then I woke up, and it wasn't so much I had a hard time with keeping me up. I love snuggling in when it's like this.
You crack open the windows, the pitter patter of the rain.
Oh, I love the sound and this. I just love it. So I was watching it for a while, and then I went back to bed, and then I had a hard time getting up to get here to work.
Yes.
But it's paused in the downtown. What's happening the rest of the day?
Yeah. So right now there's actually still a chance of thunder showers for actually much of southern Manitoba. There's actually a severe thunderstorm watch in effect right now, pretty much all the way up from Grand Rapids through the Interlake and then down south through Winnipeg all the way to the U.S. border, as far west as about Killarney or so as well. So that's happening right now. So look out for that. Maybe a severe thunderstorm throughout the morning for you. We are 14 right now in Winnipeg, heading for a high today of 25, about a 60% chance of the showers or thunderstorms. It says going to dip down to 13 overnight. I'll have more of an in-depth forecast later, but a reminder, if you're up in Thompson today, also in the north in general, there's a rainfall warning in effect. You could get 50 to 70 millimeters locally, with higher amounts possible in some thunderstorms between this morning and Friday night. So lots of rain coming your way in the next 48 hours or so. So do look out for that. As for the commute, if you see anything else going on out there, haven't heard of any major issues. Of course, maybe some hydroplaning up in Thompson today, but roads are fairly wet, so look out for that. But if you see something, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
I feel like I'm a broken record and I say it every morning, but the shot of downtown Winnipeg on YouTube when you're at this hour of the day really is just lovely. There's something about it. Yesterday it was the sunrise. Today it's the wet streets and then that promise of brightness in the sky. Let's begin the show talking about something also lovely. They are 4 years away from becoming doctors, but already they're wearing the uniform. Yesterday, white coats were presented to first-year students starting medical school over at the University of Manitoba's Max Rady College of Medicine. Radio Canada's Maggie Wilcox was at the Centennial Concert Hall for the ceremony and spoke with a few of the 140 students.
Jacob Marks. Jeffrey Mother. Jesse McGregor.
So my name is Jesse McGregor, and I am a medical student at the University of Manitoba entering my first year. A part of the reason why I'm pursuing the field of medicine is tied to my cultural identity of who I am as an Indigenous person, as an Inuit person, Cree from the north. It's a part of the cultural name or the traditional name that I received and the teachings that reside within that name. Another part is the community that I grew up in, Kiniseo CP Cree Nation or Northwest Manitoba. It's 8 hours up north, and it was a community and is a community that is in dire need of adequate healthcare services. It's over years it's really improved, but I want to be able to contribute to that overall mission of increasing adequate healthcare to the north. And then my family, my mom's always been like my biggest role model. She's a nurse, and she's been a nurse serving First Nations communities for many years, and it was through her journey that I kind of realized the importance of delivering patient-centered care and the gift and the reward that you get in the service of others. She's been, like I had mentioned, like a huge role model to me, and has taught me many of the people skills that are so necessary to being a successful healthcare professional in today's day and age, and I know that I wouldn't be able to make it to this point in my life without her love and support.
And so after med school, then, are you thinking of returning to northern communities, practicing rural medicine?
Yeah, so my plan right now, if the stars align, I'll get through these 4 years of medical school, and I'm going to work really hard to reach that goal. Eventually, I just want to get back up north. I want to be able to help the people that built me into who I am today. Like I had mentioned, I'm from Mississippi Cree Nation or Grand Rapids, so I'd love to work for the community and give back in that way. Or again, Kiniseo CP Cree Nation or Northwest Manitoba, just because that's where I graduated high school from, HBOIRC alumni, and it's just what I want to do. I want to be a family physician, and I've been sharing with folks like I'm not a city person by any means. I'm definitely a bush kid, and eventually I want to be able to serve communities as a family physician and then hunt and fish on the weekends if it works out. So yeah.
Moi, je m'appelle Abby Wojtowicz. So it was always in the back of my mind. I took all my sciences in high school, but I entered university in the Faculty of Music unsure of what I wanted to do. But it was in the back of my mind because, like, when I was 6, my father got diagnosed with a chronic illness, and the care that he received and the care that our family received through the Manitoba healthcare system, they never gave up, and they kept trying, and they tried thing on thing to find something that works for him. He's been in clinical remission for 15 years because of the excellent care provided by Manitoba doctors, and would be an honor and a privilege to spend the rest of my career doing that for other people's families.
Fantastic. And just to end, how are you feeling today? You just got your white coat. How does that make you feel?
I am so excited and grateful and proud of myself and everyone here to be here.
Peter Nickerson, Dean of the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences and Dean of the Max Rady College of Medicine. So I think this is like the last several years. It's a very diverse class. They're from all over the province. There's a few students from out of province. I don't have the exact number. We have, I believe, 10 Indigenous students, which we're really celebrating this year. We always like to have more and more Indigenous students. We recognize that's a major gap that we have in our cohort. We know that Indigenous populations around 20%. We expect to have at least 20% of our students be Indigenous so that we can actually serve the communities that we represent. So that's one of our goals. This class is putting us on that path that we're striving to achieve.
What's your message for Manitobans about these doctors? When will they see them in the community, and what should they know about these new doctors?
Right. Well, I think, as you saw, there's really positive energy. Our students are outstanding students. We know that when we look at our national exams, we have 100%, 99% pass rates, so they get a wonderful education here. Our students are really bright. And at the end of the training, we know that the vast majority, stay here in Manitoba. It's a long journey. It's at least 6 to 8 years before they're going to be in actual practice. But along the way, they'll be seeing patients, providing care, and being part of the communities here.
That was Radio Canada's Maggie Wilcox meeting members of the Max Rady College of Medicine class of 2029, and then talking obviously to the instructor at the end there. I love some of those sentiments about what leads people to be motivated to go into medicine, right? That young student who talked about her father being ill, and then also the upcoming student and future doctor potentially who was talking about being inspired by his mom, who is a nurse in northern Manitoba. So very cool. Good luck to all of those who are entering and all of those who are graduating.
Personally, from CBC Podcasts, allows you to get lost in someone else's life. From a mysterious childhood spent on the run to a courageous escape from domestic violence, each season of Personally invites you to explore the human experience in all its complexity, one story or season at a time. This is what it sounds like to be human. Find Personally on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Well, I'll tell you what, when it comes to a good prairie thunderstorm, we don't get much better than that last night. And the rain is so welcome across our province because of all of the wildfires and such, of course, but also just to sort of, clean things up. There's a freshness in the air downtown this morning now after the rain, and it's going to continue on and off throughout the day. Our high is 25, humidex 31. Severe thunderstorm watch, as Corey just said, to southern Manitoba, and then a rainfall warning 50 to 70 millimeters in the north, including in Thompson this morning where you're raining right now. Next on the show, you might recall 4 years ago, the Government of Canada announced an ambitious plan for the rollout of $10 a day early learning and childcare across the country, Now, along with promises to create 250,000 new spaces by next March. So we want to see where they're at with all of this. There was a report released this morning that looks into it. It's entitled Cash Cow. Molly McCracken's director of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives here in Manitoba, with the Manitoba office rather, and she joins us now. Hi, Molly.
Good morning.
So Cash Cow's quite a title. Tell me about why it's called that, this report.
Well, it's called Cash Cow, Assessing Childcare Space Creation Progress. And this $10 a day childcare plan to have a universal childcare system across Canada is ambitious and welcome from the childcare sector and from parents and employers alike. And so the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives has created a database whereby we are tracking the creation of childcare spaces by geographic area and actually all the way down to city block radius to see if parents have a childcare space close to where they live within 5 kilometers. It's called Cash Cow because we found that of the 150,000 new spaces created since 2022 across the country, most of those have been created in the for-profit sector. And that's a concern because research shows that the not-for-profit sector keeps all of the public money that's going into childcare into creating quality childcare, better wages for workers. And, those are the expenses of childcare workers and the rent to operate the center. Manitoba is a bit different there, however, because most of the childcare centers here are nonprofit, 95%. So it's a bit of a different story here in Manitoba.
So what does that mean, Molly? If 95% of them are nonprofit here in Manitoba, how does that fit into the picture of how many spaces we still need and how it works into this report, which, as you said, is mostly, the report is tracking the private spaces?
Well, yes, the report's tracking all the spaces in Canada and finds in Canada, most of them are for-profit have been created.
Pardon me, yeah, I said that
However,
wrong.
the story in Manitoba is different, that we have created here 3,400 spaces since 2022 for infants and preschoolers. And that's far short of the goal of 23,000 spaces that Manitoba said that they would create under the federal provincial agreement for the early learning and childcare system. And that's because we have an application-based system here in Manitoba, where if you, to create a new childcare center, you have to apply to the provincial government to do so, and they only cover 60% of the capital costs. The rest have to be fundraised. So, it's a strength here that we have a not-for-profit system. However, it has hampered our expansion because the model of creating these new spaces has been a passive one. And so this report is a call to action to change that approach here in Manitoba.
What does that look like, changing the approach? What's the recommendation? What's the first recommendation that would do that?
Well, we're saying that the provincial government needs to take a leadership role here, just like for schools. The school divisions plan for where the schools will be based on child population. That's not happening at all for childcare here in Manitoba. It's a patchwork kind of popcorn approach. And so what we're saying is the province needs to create a plan to build the remaining spaces that are needed, almost 20,000 new spaces, so that parents have access to this $10 a day childcare. And that can be done with other public entities like First Nations governments, some of which have already been creating childcare, which is great, regional health authorities, school boards, and existing nonprofit spaces, as well as taking a leadership role to create public childcare where it's needed, which is particularly in rural areas or in more low-income neighborhoods.
I was just going to ask you that, what other areas? So in some of the rural areas you found were still low. Why does this persist? I mean, you and I have been together on the air and off the air for a long time as community members here in Manitoba. I feel like we've been talking about this for an equal number of years. Not enough spaces, long lists, having to apply for families, years in advance when you sometimes you're not even pregnant yet and you're thinking about it. And then also what you highlighted, that the needs for people who are in lower income brackets to have their needs met. Why does this continue to persist no matter who's in government? What's happening?
Well, the $10 a day childcare agreement is a game changer. That came into 2021. So prior to that, there was less attention and resources available to the childcare sector. Manitoba has taken a very important step of boosting the wages of early childhood educators by about $5 per hour. And that's important because it'll help to retain those workers and also to attract new workers, because you need folks to work in these new centers. But what we're saying is we're coming to the end of this first 5-year agreement for the Canada-wide early learning childcare agreement. We're going to be entering another 5-year phase, and we're asking the province to change its approach from this passive waiting for centers to apply to create new spaces to taking a leadership role with the public sector to say, how are we going to build these spaces? Where are they needed? Who can step up to build them? And can the province actually take the initiative and build and create some?
So there's been some changes in intention and in funding and in the direction the province is going, is what I'm hearing from you. But now we need to change sort of who actually can drive the bus to get this done, maybe in a more expedient manner.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Molly. Always appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That's Molly McCracken with us live on Zoom on CBC. She's director with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives in our Manitoba office here. It is 6:27 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on YouTube this morning. You're listening to Information Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. Want to have a look ahead here and see what else is coming up on the program today, because we've got a really busy one. If you're a regular listener to Information Radio, then you know that at time to time we bring in a panel. And I'm talking about our generation, Gen Z, but if you're you're going to call me and say it's not pronounced that way. Sorry, but I'm going with the Canadian pronunciation. Gen Z, Gen Z. It's a panel of folks that talk about various things. Today, we're going to talk about how Gen Z is using AI. Is artificial intelligence actually the key to a brighter future, or is it setting young Manitobans down a bleak path? We have different opinions from our panelists this morning, some who use AI readily and welcome it, others who try to avoid it. So we're going to hear why. So that's coming up a little bit later. That panel's in after 8. Also, in the next hour of Information Radio, we're going to be hearing more from an author of an incredible memoir. Imagine having 21 foster siblings all before your 7th birthday. Now imagine watching some of those siblings, your sisters and your brothers, leave, come and go. This is just part of a true story that's told in a new book about family, identity, and culture. We're going to talk to the author about being Métis and growing up in a Manitoba Mennonite family and about why she's penned this memoir. It's really quite a read, so that's coming up as well. In addition, right away, we are going to check in with business news here on CBC, and we have Crystalie Ramlakan with us, as always, this morning. There's been a lot of uncertainty around the Postal Service for months now, with so much talk about airline workers, right? Flight attendants. You might have thought I was going to say that, but what's going on with our Postal Service? Labor negotiations continue. Canada Post is back at the bargaining table, so we're going to get the very latest from Crystalie Ramlakan. If you want to reach Corey in traffic this morning, 788-3093 is the number you can use on the commuter line. And right now, you should be okay, but you might want to check before going out. There's been a great deal of rain, so besides puddles, sometimes that also can cause other bigger challenges with standing water and such. But in downtown Winnipeg right now, we've got the sun cracking through the clouds, and the rain, at least for the moment, seems to have stopped. We'll have a bigger look at your forecast, your regional forecast, right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 6:30, we're at 14 degrees with a severe thunderstorm watch over downtown Winnipeg. As Marcy mentioned, storms should taper off in a few hours. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. Right now, Manitoba Hydro is showing scattered power outages across the greater Winnipeg metropolitan region. The largest appears to be in the River Heights area, where some 600 hydro customers are in the dark. And there's another where around 300 people are without power in the Minto area. Hydro says crews are working to get power back on. It appears to be emergency outages. The Progressive Conservative candidate in the Spruce Woods by-election issued another apology last night. During a debate in the hamlet of Spruce Woods near Shiloh, PC candidate Colleen Robbins said she opposes gender education in schools. Robbins said she was told some minors in Manitoba undergo gender-affirming surgery. When she was corrected and told that does not happen in our province, she walked her comment back.
My commitment I'd like to make today is to educate myself before I speak of something that I totally don't understand. And I apologize for that tonight.
Earlier this week, Robbins apologized for a pair of deleted tweets about unions and residential schools. The NDP's Ray Berthollet and Liberal Stephen Reid are also running in Spruce Woods. The by-election is on Tuesday. The search continues for a Norwegian hiker who's been missing in northern Manitoba for almost a week. Stefan Schottlik started off on foot from Fort Severn, Ontario, on July 25th, saying he would arrive in York Factory, Manitoba, last Friday. The 29-year-old never made it there, and searchers have been looking for him ever since. Christian Dearison, who speaks for the Schottlik family, says they appreciate everyone who's helping to find him. He says Schottlik was inspired by 2 wildlife experts in Norway who made TV programs about Canada. Now, those experts are helping look for him as well.
They have stepped into this project right now to raise money and to raise awareness. And I think for the family that is a big support, because for Stefan, those 2 has been a great inspiration, and he's kind of following in their tracks in Canada.
Mounties say data from Schottlik's GPS device placed him near the Hayes River as of last Thursday. Police say they're sending additional officers there to help with a shoreline search. A Winnipeg convicted child sex offender can return to the community, but under new conditions. Daryl Ackman was sent to prison in 2016 for offenses related to sexual assault, child sexual abuse material, and sex trafficking. He had posted videos of women and teenage girls online under the name Mr. Jets TV and exploited girls in the sex trade. According to a written decision by the Parole Board of Canada, the now 55-year-old was released from Stony Mountain Institution last September, but he was rearrested in March for violating the conditions of his release. The Parole Board said Ackman's behavior had deteriorated because he had become focused on building a music career. Ackman apologized and shared an updated release plan with the board last month. He is under the same conditions as before, but now must abstain from drugs and alcohol and take medication for an undisclosed mental health condition. In international news, the Israeli military says it has launched the initial stage of a new military operation in Gaza City. Israeli troops are already said to be advancing into the outskirts of Gaza City, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying he's speeding up the timeline for the IDF to target all remaining Hamas strongholds. All of which has led to a statement from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
It is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
Ahead of this new campaign, Israel announced it's calling up 60,000 military reservists who are being told to be prepared to join the war effort by next month. And finally, the summer's wildfire season has sparked concern amongst Manitoba-based amateur sports organizations. All summer, young athletes in our province have had their games and practices postponed and canceled. Janet McMahon is the president and CEO of Sport Manitoba.
We're very concerned. I mean, that's our number one issue, is keeping people healthy, keeping people safe, keeping people active. This could have very significant long-term effects, and I think we don't really know what they are.
McMahon says there hasn't been much dialogue with the province yet about a future of outdoor recreational sport burdened by disruptive wildfire seasons. Although she says with more outdoor sports potentially moving indoors, there will likely need to be more investment in sporting infrastructure. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks very much, Matt.
Back soon.
Got to say, anyone who's ever played a sport here in this province, probably before the wildfires, would have talked about space to participate in Manitoba. All those leagues going on and late nights. You know, sometimes you hear people go to play hockey at midnight or soccer, maybe in the also in the late hours to try to get space. So lots of pressures on the system. We'll have a full interview actually about this, but also about the effect of wildfire smoke on athletes overall coming up in the next hour. Well, today, though, got to say, obviously this rain is a gift for us, and we've had a lot of it. Corey Funk is in to tell us what the rest of the day is going to bring for the regions.
Yes, so there is a severe thunderstorm watch actually in effect still right now for pretty much much of south and central Manitoba. So that starts all the way up in Grand Rapids through the Interlake down right to the U.S. border. So that includes Winnipeg and much of southern Manitoba, kind of all the way reaching as far west as Killarney. Or so. So we're all under the severe thunderstorm watch. It is 14 right now in Winnipeg, heading for a high today of 25. And throughout the morning, there is that chance of a thunderstorm still, with pretty windy out there as well. Southwest 30 gusting to 50 or so. It's going to dip down to 13 overnight. Heading west right now, when you get as far as Brandon, you're outside of that severe thunderstorm watch zone. It's 19 right now in Brandon already, heading for a high today of 24. There is still a chance, though, of showers, and there is still a risk of a thunderstorm this morning. I got it down to 11 overnight. Dauphin, 20 already right now in Dauphin. You're heading for a high of 24 today. Also with a chance of showers or thunderstorms this morning, just about a 30% chance or so. And then it's going to dip down to 12 overnight and clear kind of as the day goes on. Up in Thompson, much of the north, portions of the north right now, including Thompson, are actually under a rainfall warning right now. You can get as much as 50 to 70 millimeters of rain between this morning and Friday night is what Environment Canada predicts, and with even potentially more in some kind of small localized pockets. So if you're in northern Manitoba right now, definitely a rain jacket for the next 48 hours, what you're going to want to be wearing if you're heading out and about this morning. I'm sure that rain is very welcome in the north today. But right now, once again, in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 14. As for the commute, haven't heard of any major issues out there, but if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
You can also call Corey, by the way, for more on what Matt had mentioned, which is what's happening with power outages this morning.
And actually, I will mention, we did get a call from someone about that in River Heights. She said her power has been out since 1:30 and she actually hasn't had power on since then. So.
Okay, so we'll try to keep on top of where things are on and off. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
It is time for business news. It is 6:38 a.m. on Thursday, August 21st here, and Christelle Ramlakan joins us with her report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So why don't we start with the uncertainty around the Postal Service, which has been ongoing for months and months. Labor negotiations also have been ongoing, though. Canada Post is back at the bargaining table. What is the latest?
Well, the union representing postal workers has presented a new offer seeking higher wages, but also allowing for weekend delivery and more part-time workers. So the new proposal includes annual wage increases of 9% in the first year of the agreement, 4% in the second year, and then 3% for years 3 and 4. And that is up from the roughly 13% over 4 years in Canada Post's offer in May. Now, workers rejected that offer earlier this month, and Canada Post says it's now reviewing this latest offer, and additional negotiations are scheduled for tomorrow and Monday. Now, expanding the workforce to include part-time workers has been a sticking point in these negotiations, which have now stretched over a year and a half. And Canada Post says it's bleeding millions of dollars in business daily, tied to the uncertainty around the collective bargaining. And I've even seen some utilities or businesses saying we're using another provider right now because perhaps there might be uncertainty with Canada Post, or that, they're planning for mail not to be delivered.
Let's go to trade news. Speaking of uncertainty, China has made a complaint to the World Trade Organization over Canada's steel tariffs now. So how is Canada reacting to this, our country?
Well, Canada is defending its steel tariffs against China and is seeking a meeting to address the complaint. So Beijing is taking issue with Canada's 25% surtax on imports that contain steel melted or poured in China. Now, China says the duties are discriminatory and is urging the federal government to reverse course. And Prime Minister Mark Carney imposed the tariff last month in an effort to protect the domestic industry amid the U.S.'s global trade war and allegations of steel dumping from some foreign markets. Now, a spokesperson for the International Trade Minister says Canada's tariffs are in direct response to China's efforts to act outside of traditional market dynamics, and that Chinese overcapacity is undermining Canada's steel sector and threatening Canadian jobs. So the feds say the tariffs are consistent with international trade obligations and that Canada is pressing for a joint economic and trade commission meeting with China to put its concerns on the table.
And why are some Canadians finding orange juice from Florida harder to swallow?
Well, that's because the cost is climbing. There are counter tariffs on U.S. juices like Tropicana. So, some people are feeling a little bit squeezed these days. And therefore, U.S. orange juice shipments are plummeting. So the total value of U.S. shipments of fresh orange juice to Canada saw a steep drop in June to its lowest level in more than 20 years. And the drop in imports has also been compounded by consumers' desire to buy Canadian with the trade war that's going on. So, the American product is going up in price, demand is down, and there are other options on the shelf. And, when shoppers think of orange juice, they think of Florida. And when they think of Florida, they may think of President Donald Trump and his trade war and his Mar-a-Lago home, and therefore may be a little sour on orange juice these days.
Thanks for the juicy details.
Thanks.
I'm the worst at puns. I don't even know why I try. See how you floated through all of yours, like without flinching, and I'm all like, bunch. What's going on in the markets, Christelle?
We always appreciate your effort anyway, Marcy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
So in Europe, stocks are retreating. Germany is down. The UK is down. France is down. And Asia markets are mostly on the rise. But right now, Japan is down. Shanghai is up. Hong Kong is down. Oil is up 55 cents to $63.23 US per barrel. Gold is down $16.80 to $3,329.50 US per ounce. And the dollar's just slightly down 0.01 of a cent to 72.1 51 cents US.
Well, I'm a great interviewer. I think I'll stick to that for the rest of the show.
You are.
Talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Marzi.
That is Crystal Lee Ramlicam with our business news here on CBC's Information Radio. 6:43 after an active night. We still have storms in parts of Manitoba this morning. We're in this pocket downtown where the rain has stopped, and it's mostly cloudy and 14. Well, next on the show, I mentioned that we have a panel coming up. So this is a panel, our Gen Z panel, that's going to talk about how they use AI. That's after 8. Right now, though, in the last few years, there's been an explosion of AI, artificial intelligence tools and features and apps and websites, especially after ChatGPT was released. Now, to find out whether people overall are using these tools and how much they trust them, the CBC's Andrew Lamb hit the streets of Halifax.
Do you use ChatGPT or other AI tools?
Yes. I'm a software developer. It makes my job a lot easier, makes my life a lot easier with any, projects, work, any of that stuff. Certain tasks like debugging and stuff that would take like 3+ hours or days even, I can get done within an hour.
No, I don't. Not personally, but I know a lot of people who do. As a writer myself, I find it a bit, I don't want to say offensive, but it's a little disturbing how people can just generate whatever they want, whereas people used to have to actually work for it.
I use ChatGPT occasionally, and then, the Google AI that always comes up on the search, I kind of use that against my will, like it just comes up, so that's pretty much it, I'd say.
What do you use ChatGPT for?
I do a lot of social science research, so I'll use it to help me outline an essay or something. If I feel a bit stuck, sometimes I'll be writing if I need to write a bio or a short paragraph or something, I'll write it out and then put it into ChatGPT just to see if there's anything I could improve.
I've occasionally used it because I enjoy writing scripts. I don't ever rely on it to write all of it. I use it a bit for if I ever need inspiration on maybe a little bit of a quip or something that somebody should say. So that'd be about it. Otherwise, I don't use it for any schoolwork or anything as such.
How much do you trust it or find it reliable?
I would never trust it to write anything like an essay or a resume. I really only trust it just for enough where it can give me something that I can do myself.
With my knowledge, I can trust it. Right? I know what it's doing. I understand it. I read always before it. But with other things, I wouldn't trust it as much because it does fabricate some sources and etc. I think it's a next step into a better search engine, but not necessarily as trustworthy right now as everyone thinks it is.
I personally don't like it. I don't hate people for doing it. I know it's derivative of other people's works, but that's also how most works in the world today are. My problem is that it's lower quality than what a human can do.
Not very much. Whenever I use it, I always use it with a grain of salt. It's definitely not the last step of anything. It'll be kind of to get the ideas flowing or to do some sort of check, and then after that I will always change what it says or verify it with another source.
Does it feel like there's been more and more of these AI features coming out lately?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like every single app or website I use, there's a new AI tool every single day. I really can't keep up with it, and I feel like they're also emerging in a way that makes it non-optional for you to use. It kind of just appears and you have to use it in order to use that app or website. So I feel like there's so many these days.
Yeah, everything has an AI now. It's the next step in technology. Some things are quite gimmicky maybe, but it's just natural. That's what's going to happen, and nothing really we can do to stop it.
There's been some concerns brought up with ChatGPT of if we rely on it, is that going to affect our critical thinking skills, things like that. What do you think about that?
Definitely have noticed, even with my use, my ability to think on my own is, I think, drastically or noticeably lowered, right? I'm not as critical as I once was.
I think it's true. If you don't engage a part of your brain, it kind of becomes redundant. So if AI is made to help you solve problems, then what about the side of our brain that is supposed to help us solve problems? How do we develop that side of the brain? And if a child is being exposed to AI, that means the child grows up not developing the problem or analytical side of their brain.
So that was a CBC's Andrew Lamb out actually on the streets of Halifax talking to something that, is a conversation across the country. How do people use AI tools like Chat GPT and such? And how do you, where do you draw the line? How much do you trust those tools? It's a conversation we will have with our Gen Z panel coming up after 8 this morning. Two of our panelists say they have mixed emotions toward AI. They both say they sometimes use it and it can be good, but they also say it can be really bad. And we're going to find out why they have that perspective coming up. If you want to weigh in yourself, 788-3205.
Ghostly, staring at the ceiling, heart of gold, blank eyes, moving, follow your emotions, let them be. Let me be beside you. Just a girl who dances jingle and a boy who breaks my heart. Tippy tappy toes, making little mocking marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. In every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you. Longing, carrying a burden, movements, push them down, flying, soaring like the eagle, pretty eyes, I just say, I need you, just a girl who dances jingle, and a boy who breaks my heart. Tippy tappy toes, making little mocking marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. It's in every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you. Jingle and a boy who breaks my heart. Tippy tappy toes, making little mocking marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. It's in every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you.
I love the smile in his voice, right? It's so lovely. Ethan Lyric and local Manitoba artist Jingle Dress. You can hear little jingles in the background of the tune. I love the tippy tappy toes. If you check out Ethan's Instagram, by the way, you're going to find a lot of joy there and upcoming releases of new music. It is 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. Got some things developing in traffic, and some of these could be related to the storm, although we're still waiting to see what's going on. So one of them is Waverly and Bison. Lights are out. Treat that intersection as an always stop. Expect delays. Portage and Woodlawn now, there's a motor vehicle collision blocking the eastbound middle lane. Use caution passing that. I can see a van that looks like it's been affected there by an accident. Flashes are on. So that can be come up suddenly and be tricky to get around. So watch that. Also, we have some power outages around Winnipeg this morning. So give us a call if you're having any other problems with power or with your morning commute at 788-3093. Well, we remain in a state of emergency in this province due to wildfires. That will extend through August 22nd. If you're looking at the calendar this morning, you know that's tomorrow, so we'll see if it ends up being lifted. But next on the show, let's talk about what is happening this season with fires across Canada. They are spreading at record levels this year. Tens of thousands have been forced from their homes. Fire risks are expected to stay high into September. And to talk about it from that national perspective, Ken McMullen is back with us, president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, and is the fire chief in Red Deer, Alberta. Good morning.
Good morning.
So the federal government says fire risks, as I mentioned, are going to stay high through September. What do you think that actually means for Canadians and their understanding of what a fire season is anymore?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the reality is it's just a reminder of staying vigilant and understanding that although some provinces and territories are not currently seeing the fire risks that we have seen earlier in the season, we still have a long way to go. This does not end quickly. These are fires that are going to continue well into September, early October. So we need to remain prepared and always on guard for what we can see in our own provinces and territories.
And what are the biggest challenges firefighters are facing right now in Canada?
I think in practical terms, there's fatigue. There's fatigue on the individuals involved in the fires. There's fatigue on equipment. There's fatigue on the system. And what I mean by the system is the overall ability to get resources from one part of the country to another part of the country, which, again, is why the CFC continues to advocate for the creation of a national fire administration. I think that there's some confusion amongst government of the role that municipal firefighters play in wildland firefighting, and we have some work to do to continue to tell that story.
The federal government has put in over $540,000 into training, nearly 100 new community firefighters, which seems like a drop in the bucket after what we've been through in Manitoba. But do you think, obviously it's a step in the right direction. I'm wondering what that number could look like or should look like to actually meet the needs we're seeing here with fires.
Yeah, I think it's important. I always want to recognize and give appreciations to any investment towards firefighters in Canada. So we will say thank you publicly and behind closed doors for the investment of additional training. The unfortunate reality, and I think it speaks to your introduction, is that's not enough. There's just never going to be enough firefighters to put out the amount of fires that we're facing in Canada. There are currently 124,000 firefighters in Canada, made up of our career, composite, and volunteer firefighters. 87,000 of those are still volunteers, men and women that this is not their primary responsibility or employment. They give back to their community in this very, very unique and special way. We are asking a lot of these firefighters, and what typically would be, we're asking them to be away from their homes for weeks, and we've seen months at a time. It's just not a sustainable model.
What about with the equipment? Obviously, there's a lot of sharing. We're seeing our equipment on the East Coast right now out of Manitoba, and we had lots of help here in the peak of our season in June and July. Well, frankly, starting in May. Do we have enough equipment, or where do you hope the investments are there across the country?
Yeah, again, I think it's important to understand when we're talking about equipment for wildland firefighting, we often start talking about water bombers and helicopters and heavy equipment used in the treat areas. And those are typically assets or property of our wildland colleagues. When we're talking about municipal equipment, those are talking about fire trucks, bush trucks, water tankers that we have within our towns, villages, and cities. That is, quite frankly, what the National Fire Administration is going to help us do. We're going to get an achievement of coordination and better deployment of resources between provinces and territories. It is happening today. I know it's happening, but it's happening between relationships between firefighters and fire chiefs within our communities, not done at the federal level where we believe would be the best coordinated effort.
What's the reality for Canadians, and my lens is always on Manitobans, who live in areas that have been devastated by wildfire this year, and maybe it's new enough to them that they're feeling like they're not sure how they're going to prepare moving forward? Like, what should they understand about fireproofing property and maybe having even being ready to go should evacuations happen again?
Yeah, let me start by just giving my thoughts and prayers to everybody that's been impacted. And we know that you've got hundreds of thousands of people across Canada and a lot in your province that have been impacted by the fire. So we certainly give our thoughts to those individuals. Preparation is key, and I think that we can all take a moment to realize that there is some things that we can do around our own properties. We can understand the Fire Smart principles, and it's a very easy internet search of what are the Fire Smart principles. It's going to give you some very easy to follow guidelines to look around your own property and see what we can do to reduce the risks. As you said about planning for the evacuation, there might be a time where it's called shelter in place, where we've asked you to stay home and protect yourself in your location. That's where having a 72-hour kit plays a very, very key role in that ability to do that. But from an evacuation perspective, have that conversation around the kitchen table tonight. Talk to your family and loved ones about what it would mean if you were asked to evacuate. Do you have all your documents ready? Have you considered what you're going to do with your pets or your livestock if you're in a remote community? All of those things really are needed to be top of mind right now.
Thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Stay safe to you and your listeners.
That's Ken McMullen with us live on CBC, president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs. He's the fire chief in Red Deer, Alberta. As I mentioned, our state of emergency in Manitoba extends to tomorrow. We'll have to see whether or not it will be officially lifted. Let's get to our morning headlines here with Matt Humphrey.
Good morning. Manitoba Hydro says crews are working to get the power back on for hundreds of customers in and around Winnipeg. The largest outages right now appear to be in the River Heights area, with around 600 customers in the dark, and in the Minto area with around 300 affected. And also, Manitoba Mounties say it's believed a Norwegian trekker who disappeared last week while on a cross-continental journey of the Canadian wilderness tried to cross a fast-moving river and may have been swept away in the process. Searchers believe Stefan Schotalik may have tried to cross the Hayes River near York Factory. We'll hear the latest at the bottom of the hour.
Thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Mostly cloudy in the downtown right now, 14 degrees in Winnipeg after those active storms overnight. Now, you still could have pockets of the rain out this morning and then this afternoon as well. We'll see what happens with that. A high of 25 today. It'll feel like 31. Brandon cloudy, 20 right now, and Thompson cloudy, 17 degrees. Same with the rain situations. Although much more in the north, there's a rainfall warning. So we're talking 50 to 70 millimeters of rain throughout today, tonight, tomorrow. So watch that around Thompson. Also, a severe thunderstorm watch is still issued, I believe, for southern Manitoba. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that and what changes there. In traffic, beyond the outages that Matt was mentioning with the electricity, we have some traffic alerts. Waverly and Bison lights are out there. So that's affecting people. Treat that intersection as an always stop. And then we also have a motor vehicle collision blocking the eastbound and middle lane at Portage and Woodlawn. It looks like a van has broken down there, and it's kind of sideways. You might come upon it suddenly. So 788-3093 if you have an update for us. In the next hour of Information Radio, we're going to hear more about that Norwegian hiker that Matt also mentioned. Plus, a Métis author talks about growing up in a Mennonite family and what her life was like when she learned she was a 60 scoop survivor.
Today on The Current.
I understand the mice, the rats, maybe a rabbit, but these poor little beagles, you look at their face.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's message was clear. The use of dogs and cats in lab research is going to change. But how does this impact the bigger conversation around how animals are used in medical research? That's coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israel says it has begun the first phases of a military offensive in Gaza City, and troops have established a foothold in the outskirts. Hundreds of Palestinians are leaving their homes and moving northwest. Margaret Evans has the latest.
Israeli strikes hitting Gaza in the early hours of the morning, drowning out international condemnation as Israel says it is proceeding with a promised ground offensive in Gaza City, the Strip's largest urban center, or what's left of it. A spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces says Israeli troops already control the city's outskirts, and call-up notices have been issued to 60,000 reservists for an operation expected to begin in earnest in September. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres added his voice to those warning of catastrophic implications for Palestinian civilians.
It is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
The Israeli decision, which it says is aimed at rooting out what remains of Hamas and rescuing hostages, has dampened optimism that a 60-day ceasefire might be agreed. Hamas said it would accept the agreement. Israel has yet to formally respond. In an interview with the Associated Press on Wednesday, Washington's pro-settler ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, blamed failed ceasefire talks on countries like Canada that have recently indicated they plan to recognize a Palestinian state. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants details on security guarantees for his country, and he wants them within the next 7 to 10 days. And he says he will not meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin until he gets them. Zelensky's comments come hours after Russian airstrikes overnight. Workers clean up glass and debris inside a residential building in the western city of Lviv. The local governor says at least one person was killed and several others injured. Kyiv was also a target of the overnight attacks. German prosecutors say police have arrested a Ukrainian citizen suspected of damaging the Nord Stream pipelines. Those underwater pipelines bring Russian natural gas to Germany, and they were damaged by a series of explosions in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. The suspect is believed to be one of the coordinators of that operation. He was arrested in Italy. Ukraine has rejected suggestions it may have ordered the attack. Venezuela is mobilizing its military and banning the use of drones. The country is in a heightened state of military readiness. The United States is sending fleets of warships to the southern Caribbean. The Trump administration officials say they're there to intercept drug shipments, but Venezuela's government fears this could be the start of a move to oust President Maduro. Manuel Rueda has more.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is pushing back against the deployment of U.S. warships to the southern Caribbean. Earlier this week, he announced his government will mobilize all of its reservists to prepare Venezuela for a possible U.S. attack. No empire is going to touch the sacred soil of Venezuela, he said. U.S. officials have said that 3 destroyers are on their way to international waters near Venezuela's coast. Another group of 3 ships carrying a land force with 4,000 Marines is expected to arrive in the area next week. The Trump administration has accused the Venezuelan leader of being a major drug trafficker. Earlier this week, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the U.S. government wants Maduro to face justice.
The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs.
Wilder Alejandro Sanchez, a military analyst in Washington, said an attack on Venezuela is unlikely.
I don't think the U.S. government wants to pick another fight. They're already very busy with China and Russia.
But he says that the U.S. is trying to intimidate Venezuela and show that country's president that he can no longer support drug trafficking. Maduro has long denied any links to drug cartels. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
As the Trump administration works to limit migration and seal the U.S. southern border, it is getting ready to deport people to Uganda. Both countries have just agreed to a deal where Uganda will accept deportees from the U.S. as long as they do not have criminal records and are not unaccompanied minors. Uganda also says it would prefer to accept deportees of African nationalities. Ontario's education minister is questioning whether school board trustees should even exist. Paul Calandra says cutting them out would be part of a back-to-basics plan. It would centralize more decisions at Queen's Park. As Colin Butler tells us, critics say it could strip away community accountability and hand more power to the government.
It is up for review. Education Minister Paul Calandra is floating a big idea, wiping out school board trustees. If it looks like we can deliver the product better, provide better outcomes for students, better resources for teachers, and give parents certainty, and if that means eliminating trustees, then I'm going to do it. The straight line from Queen's Park to the classroom comes after years of bad headlines, trustees caught in spending scandals, and boards so dysfunctional the province has had to take them over.
They are capitalizing on current crises.
Beth Mai is a school board trustee in London, Ontario. Its board was taken over 4 months ago by the province. She says without trustees, parents lost their voice, communities lost their link, and accountability has gone missing.
And any decisions that are being made, with the exception of the budget, are being made behind closed doors.
Professor Sachin Maharaja studies leadership in education at the University of Ottawa. He says Mai is right. He points to Nova Scotia, where elected boards were scrapped in 2018. The result was less democracy, not more efficiency.
Schools just become less responsive to parents and community members.
For now, it's just talk, but talk has a way of becoming law, and the lesson is clear. Once trustees are gone, they likely don't come back. Colin Butler, CBC News, London, Ontario.
An independent commission says federal judges in Canada deserve a $28,000 raise. minimum. If it is approved, judges on each province's Superior Court will make about $425,000 a year, and the Chief Justice at the Supreme Court will make $546,000 a year. The judges argued higher salaries are necessary to attract highly qualified lawyers. Trevor Farrow is Dean of Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto.
Judicial compensation should not be a political game. It should not be part of the political trading back and forth. It's an issue that needs to be independent of that.
The federal government says it is still studying the report, but it has raised concerns an increased salary would be insensitive to taxpayers in this era of budget deficits and fiscal restraint. There are 1,200 judges who sit on Canada's various federal courts. Eric and Lyle Menendez will take turns in front of a California parole board starting today. The brothers were convicted in the 1989 murder of their parents, but even if the parole board approves, there's no guarantee they will be freed. Steve Futterman is following the case from San Diego.
The frantic 911 call in August 1989 is still chilling to hear.
Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? My mom and my dad. Okay.
Eventually, Eric and Lyle Menendez admitted killing their parents. They were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But earlier this year, a judge resentenced them to 50 years to life. Under California law, they are now eligible for parole. One of those expected to appear before the board is their first cousin, Anna Maria Baralt. She supports their release.
We will not stop fighting for Eric and Lyle, for justice, and for the truth.
While claims of sexual abuse may come up, Loyola Law School professor Lori Levinson says it will likely not be the key factor.
What the parole board has to decide is whether they are suitable, safe for release.
The board will also hear from the LA County District Attorney's Office. The current DA, Nathan Hochman, opposes their release.
The Menendez brothers engaged in a deliberate, premeditated killing of their parents.
The most emotional testimony will come from the brothers themselves. Today's hearing will be for Eric Menendez. Tomorrow will be for Lyle Menendez. A decision by the parole board is expected at the end of each day, but even if the board recommends release, it can still be vetoed by California Governor Gavin Newsom. Steve Futterman for CBC News, San Diego.
And that is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Rain overnight and storms continuing today in many parts of the province. Lots of rain up north. And we have power outages as well all over Winnipeg. I shouldn't say all over, in parts of Winnipeg this morning. So we're in an active start to our Thursday. Thanks for joining us. Corey Funk and Matt Humphrey are going to be in for our news department and with weather traffic in a moment. Get you all caught up on today. In addition, this hour on the show for interviews, we are going to be hearing from an author. Imagine having 21 foster siblings all before you're 7 years old. Now imagine watching your sisters and brothers come and go. It's part of a true story told in a new book about family, identity, and culture. We're going to talk to the author about being Métis and growing up in Manitoba in a Mennonite family. Also, smoked out of the ball fields. We're going to chat with an expert about what it's been like for athletes to miss out on summer sporting events because of what's been happening with the wildfires and, of course, the lack of space to engage in sport as well. So it's coming up in a lot of different areas in Manitoba. We'll have a full interview with Sport Manitoba just ahead of 8. Right now, with other updates, Matt Humphrey is in, as mentioned. Hi.
Good morning. Yesterday saw the second and final debate leading up to the Spruce Woods provincial by-election. Candidates for the Progressive Conservatives and the New Democrats struggled to explain their respective positions on gender education in schools and the responsibility for the poor quality of Manitoba's healthcare system. We'll hear more at the bottom of the hour. And police in Manitoba say a Norwegian trekker who disappeared last week may only have been a few kilometers away from his destination when a fast-moving river possibly swept him away. Nowadies believe Stefan Schottelijk may have tried to cross the Hayes River near York Factory. The 29-year-old had set out on foot with his 2 dogs last month and had planned to arrive in the northern Manitoba community last Friday, but he never made it. We'll hear the latest. At the bottom of the hour, we'll hear from his family.
Let's talk about power outages because Matt and Corey, you had calls. Corey, Matt, you were on top of it. So the latest that you know is a little bit of River Heights.
Yeah, so we have 600 customers affected in River Heights as of 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
And then another around 300 in the Minto area, customers affected. Those are the largest power outages we're seeing right now. And then there are a handful of smaller outages scattered around the Winnipeg metropolitan region.
Got it.
The greater Winnipeg
Does
area.
that reflect the calls you're getting then, Corey?
Yeah, the one person I heard from Joanne, she said the power went out around 1:34 in River Heights.
River Heights. Okay, she's part of that part.
And she's been trying to get a sense of when it's going to come back on, but she hasn't had any luck with it.
And then when Hydro, on its latest update on the Hydro outages map, says the power was supposed to be back on at 5. So crews are working on it. And then in the Minto area, 7:30.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got a call from Joanne after 5.
Exactly. Precisely.
Got it. Okay, so that's what we know about the power outages, everybody. Let's find out what we know about, why don't we do that? You want to do the commute or the forecast first, Corey?
Let's talk the commute actually first. So actually a few things to keep an eye out for, and this is kind of exciting stuff. There's actually a lot of closures in downtown starting today, actually, to keep an eye out for. So Carleton, Edmonton, and Hargrave from St. Mary to Portage closed for the CEBL finals happening here in Winnipeg for the next few days. Go Sea Bears. So also that includes Graham from Edmonton to Donald as well is also going to be closed until the 25th. So today until the 25th, it's 4 days or so. That's totally closed. So driving through downtown, not going to be super easy for the next few days, but should be some fun festivities down there. And then also just still those issues that you were mentioning earlier there, Marcy, still a problem. You could see at Waverly and Bison, the lights are out. You want to treat that as a 4-way stop. As well, Portage and Woodlawn, there's a multi-vehicle collision blocking that eastbound middle lane on Portage. There's that van that's kind of sideways there. Still a problem. So that's an issue. You can give me a call. Just do the weather right away after this. But 204-788-3093 is that number to call. But as for your weather, it's 17 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks. That severe thunderstorm watch has been lifted for much of southern Manitoba now. It's really just the Interlake area. So I'm talking about like Hecla, Arborg area, still under that severe thunderstorm watch. Also east of Lake Winnipeg as well, Poplar River, that area, Blood Vein, also under that severe thunderstorm watch. We're heading for a high today here in Winnipeg of 25 with a chance of showers or thunderstorms still, which will probably dissipate as we get closer to the afternoon. So look out for that. And also just keep in mind, if you're up north in Thompson this morning, you are under a rainfall warning. And we're not talking like just a little bit of rainfall. We're talking about 50 to 70 millimeters of rain possible between this morning and Friday afternoon for pockets of the north. And Environment Canada says even some pockets might even see more than that. So rain jackets and probably some rubber boots for sure are mandatory in the next 24 or 48 hours for you up north around Thompson. If you see anything else going on, though, I'll just mention the number one more time for the commute, 204-788-3093.
Well, as Matt just mentioned in headlines, today does mark 1 week since Norwegian hiker Stefan Schuttleek went missing during his trek to the York Factory, Manitoba. There is, though, now some hope that they will soon know where he is. Manitoba RCMP have confirmed they've obtained the GPS data. They're now able to concentrate the search area. Now, all this while, his family back in Norway can only watch and search from afar. The family spokesperson, Christian Dierson, told CBC's Bryce Hoy how they're coping.
Yeah, I think we all can imagine how it must feel to a certain extent. It's a tiring situation. It's a kind of unknown situation developing from hours to hour with some positive news, some good efforts from the Norwegian side and the Canadian side. There are hopes. There are different scenarios. And it's a hopeless situation in another way because it's far away. But most of all, the family appreciates all the good support and the cooperation with official environments in Canada and also in Norway. Especially the foreign minister of Norway has been amazing from the Norwegian side.
Spoke with RCMP yesterday, and they had alluded to the fact that they highly suspected that Stefan was near the Hayes River and maybe tried to cross it. And given the fact that we've had a lot of rain here and the tide can shift tremendously, 4 meters in height from low to high tide, they were concerned that perhaps he tried to cross on foot and maybe didn't make it. Is the GPS coordinates that you're aware of, do they place Stefan at the river?
I can confirm that the coordinates are placing him close to the river. And that's what I can say right now. So I think the coordinates and the position that they tell cannot give any more information than just the fact that it's quite close to an area that they already had kind of on the map and focusing on. So it was a confirmation on where to concentrate the search and rescue, which is going on right now.
So that was Christian Dierson, a spokesperson for the family of Stefan Schottlik. He was speaking with CBC's Bryce Hoy about this. If you want to see more and read more about the story, we have a number of pieces up on our website since he went missing a week ago. That is at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, next on the show, something a little bit different. Winnipegger Rebecca Kowalski's fascination with bees goes back decades, and it's personal. And now the beekeeper's on a bit of a journey. She wants to share her love of the often maligned pollinators with all kinds of people across Winnipeg. Recently, she joined us on Information Radio, and it turned out to be quite a touching interview. And she explained where her love of bees comes from.
I've been working with them for about 10 years now. But I've been learning about bees for probably another 10 years before that. And so, the more I work with them, the more fascinated I am. I feel like the more I know or learn, the less I know, because the world of bees is so massive.
Part of this comes from, I understand, a little bit of a personal connection with your mom. You had a book called The Secret Life of Bees.
So basically, it was in 2004 that I was doing a project. I was in the Cree-Com course at Red River, and I was doing a project on bees. I was doing the health benefits of royal jelly and pollen. And my mom always had a way of supporting me no matter what I did. So she bought me this book, The Secret Life of Bees. And so then the book took on new meaning when she went away to Guatemala, and she was leading a tour that was called Search for the Soul. And she was actually warning her passengers for about an hour prior about the strong undertow on the beach in this really small town in Guatemala. And so one of her passengers called out for help, and she went to go and help them. And in doing that, finally a small fishing boat came, and they got the woman in who she went out to save, but she herself lost her life. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was, my mom was everything, as many moms are. And so she always was just such a force. And so it was a huge loss in our lives. But that book, in the end, the last thing she gave me turned out to be about, I don't know if you've read it before, but it's about a little girl who loses her mom, and she finds love in different ways. And so one of these ways that she finds them is through this community of women beekeepers and the bees themselves. Like and so woven throughout the book, beautifully written, are all these messages of love and healing and grief and loss, but also these real, true bee facts that are fascinating. And so as I reread that book, because as you can imagine, I read it a million times.
Yeah.
These bee facts kept coming out to me, and the mystery of the bees and everything. And so I didn't get into it right away. But years later, I took the beekeeping for the hobbyist course, and I followed through with it. So,
and here you are now. I
can't. Here I am now. Yeah.
I walked into that question with a smile, and I apologize because obviously I was asking you about, the story of your mom, but I was just thinking about the book and your love of it coming from your mom. But thank you so much for sharing what happened to her, and how incredible that you're in some ways following, in the footsteps of this character in the book, right? In your love and, in your love for bees now and beekeeping. Have you found community through it as well, beyond the fascination with bees?
Oh my goodness, so much community everywhere. Like the beekeeping community themselves. It's funny because every beekeeper I've met loves their bees as much as I do. And so many of us have our story of how we got into the bees. And sometimes you think, okay, these commercial bee guys have 4,000 hives compared to like 10 hives that I have. And they love their bees every bit as much as, a hobbyist does, or it's just, we're all in it for the good of the bees. And it really has broadened my community.
And
I also have an intern program. And so,
I was going to interject here and mention some of those things because we're talking about educational sessions. You actually have sessions with communities, schools. You go to homes with people who are elderly. How do people respond when you're teaching them about bees?
By the time I finish my sessions, everyone's in love with the bees. Truly, the kids are so smart. Lately, when I'm starting the sessions, they know so much about bees already, and they're so excited to learn more. So I lead those ones mostly with their questions, and I kind of make sure I get a lot of the, cool things about bees I want to share with them in there. But really, their questions lead the way. They're so interested in our pollinators. And I mean, for the schools, I kind of dress like a bee. And I got this funny little bee car that everybody loves. And even in the...
Okay, hang on a minute. What's a funny little bee car? Is it painted like a bee, or is it yellow, or is it like what makes it?
It's bright yellow. It's from Japan, so it's a right-hand drive. And it's a Toyota Scion XB is what it is, 2001 vehicle. So it's a bit of a head turner. And then I also had it deckled up, so it's got bees all over it.
Oh, it's so much fun. What do you hope people take away from a workshop?
I really want people to know a little bit about bees and what it goes in, what goes into managing an apiary in a responsible way. But in addition to that, I want them to feel inspired by the bees, because really, truly, how they work together as one super organism is something that we as human beings can learn from. There's no judgment. You brought in more pollen than I did, or my job's way more important than you as a cleaner bee and I'm a forager, or the colors or the sizes, they work together to produce a miraculous amount of honey, this tiny little insect. And so I really want to inspire people through that so that we as humans can learn and start working better together.
Rebecca Kowalski of Prairie Sweetheart Honey. If you want to read more about her business and workshops, sweethearthoney.com. Quite a story, eh? Lights are out, by the way. Waverly and Bison Drive. The street that doesn't always stop. Power's out in parts of River Heights. About 600 customers affected. We'll see when that gets restored. It was supposed to be either by now or around 7:30 in the Minto area, where it also could be out. So we'll watch that. In addition, you have closures of streets. Edmonton, Carleton, Hargrave, Graham, portions of that today. Tomorrow, this is all through the weekend for a sporting event coming up. And so 788-3093 if you want to update anything else on your morning commute this Thursday. 17 degrees, mostly cloudy in Winnipeg. Tons of rain overnight and a rainfall warning still to northern Manitoba. The severe thunderstorm watch has now shifted through the eastern part of the Lake Winnipeg and through the Interlake. Well, I mentioned those closures in downtown Winnipeg for a sporting event. That event is the Canadian Elite Basketball League's 2025 Championship Weekend, hosted here in our city. It's going to be so much fun if you're taking part in some of the games or festivities. And of course, the Sea Bears, because we are the host city, get to participate and play too. So they're going to be playing tomorrow night, and we'll see how they can do. Right now, speaking of other local teams, the Bombers in Montreal tonight, they're hoping history repeats itself. Scott Regehr, can you explain that?
Yeah, well, although they'd prefer, Marcy, they don't have to rely upon Mother Nature to help them beat the Alouettes this time around. Last season, some may recall, the Bombers clinched the Western Division title when a massive gust of wind blew back a Montreal punt late in the game and gave Sergio Castillo a chance to win it with a long wind-assisted field goal, which, of course, he did. I do like the Bombers' chances tonight, regardless of the elements. For one, due to injuries, Montreal will have their fourth string quarterback James Morgan behind center. Meanwhile, Winnipeg, as usual, will have their veteran Zach Collaros. Collaros was asked, given the club's middling 5-4 start to the season, whether there's a different dynamic in the locker room.
No, not really. I mean, after the games, obviously, there's things you always want back, so that those kind of haunt you right after the game. That being said, I think we have to stick to our process that's got us to this point, whether it's this season or, a lot of us have been here for a long time, and we believe in the way that we do things here, so it's important to just be consistent with that.
Collaros, of course, remembers that it was at this juncture last season the Bombers turned things completely around. They started 2-6 and then reeled off 8 straight wins, 2 of those coming in the Banjo Bowl and Labor Day Classic against you-know-who. And you-know-who is Winnipeg's next opponent, although right now the task is to focus not too far ahead, but rather on Montreal. 6:30 kickoff tonight, and by the way, no significant wind in the forecast.
And we don't know if that's good or not. Maybe we'll need it. Hopefully not. Okay, meantime, it's a big day in golf as well.
Yeah, the Canadian Women's Open gets underway this morning in Mississauga. Befitting a national open, the field includes many of the biggest stars in the game, including the sport's top 4 ranked players. Among them, New Zealand's Lydia Ko, who has a chance to win this event for a record 4th time already. There is a strong Canadian contingent as well, including Hamilton's Elena Sharp.
Hard to believe it's already been 20 years, but I still remember my first Canadian Open, and it was in Niagara. And I've seen this tournament grow throughout these last 20 years. We keep raising the bar here. This is such a beautiful build out. I mean, we're spoiled. We're getting amazing food. We have the best volunteers on tour, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of fans this week.
Elena Sharp, who is now 44, Marcy, and will be eligible for the Senior Tour next year, which might explain why she's been hinting at retiring from LPGA play of late. She'll tee off in about half an hour or so, Elena Sharp. Canada's best hope, of course, Brooke Henderson. She'll get going at around noon Central Time. As good as Henderson has been, Marcy, in her career, she's in the midst of a considerable drought. It's been about 3 years since her last victory. Getting one this weekend on home soil would be quite a way to end that drought.
And the Jays are not playing today. It's an off day, but they're still making news, right?
Yeah, in an effort to solidify their rotation before the playoffs, Marcy, Toronto is demoting Eric Lauer to the bullpen. This, for me, is a complete head-scratcher. Lauer's been their best starter. He hasn't given up more than 3 runs in a single outing all season long, and yet because others have more seniority and bigger pay packets, it's Lauer going to the relief course. So the Jays have the day off. They'll play against Miami tomorrow.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. It's time for your news.
This is CBC News. At 7:30, we're at 17 degrees with partly cloudy skies and showers over downtown Winnipeg. The severe thunderstorm watch has now ended. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. Manitoba Hydro is still showing scattered power outages across the greater Winnipeg metropolitan region. The largest appears to be in the River Heights area, where some 600 hydro customers are in the dark. Around another 300 are without power in the Minto area. There's a cluster of outages just north of St. Vital Centre, and then dozens of smaller outages scattered around southeastern Manitoba. Hydro says crews are working to get the power back on. A line of severe thunderstorms hit hard across the prairies last night. That's the sound of a storm just outside Oakville. We're hearing reports of heavy overnight rain west of Winnipeg, in and around Portage and Headingley in that area. There are also power outages being reported in Alberta, with power lines and transmission stations damaged. At one point, a tornado warning was triggered in and around Saskatoon. And here in Manitoba and along the entire storm front, significantly sized hail has been reported, ranging in size from a nickel to a toonie. The final debate in the Spruce Woods by-election campaign saw candidates field questions about gender education in schools. The debate took place in the hamlet of Spruce Woods near Shiloh. PC candidate Colleen Robbins said she opposes gender education because she's been told minors undergo gender-affirming surgery. When she was told that doesn't happen in Manitoba, Robbins apologized. Liberal candidate Stephen Reed, who is a teacher, mocked the idea that educators indoctrinate their students. He joked if students could be influenced in such a way, they would shower and use deodorant.
There is no way a student is going to get any sort of push towards being trans, gay, lesbian, etc., or change the chemistry of their body or whatever else is being suggested here.
The third candidate in Spruce Woods, Ray Berthollet of the NDP, did not address gender education in schools. By-election day is next Tuesday. The family of a Norwegian hiker who's missing in northern Manitoba say they're grateful to people helping search for him. Stefan Schotelek left Fort Severn, Ontario on July 25th, saying he would arrive in York Factory last Friday. The 29-year-old never made it there. Volunteers from Fort Severn, Gillam, and other communities, as well as police and conservation officers, have been trying to find him. Christian Dyerson speaks for the Schotelek family in Norway.
The family wants to underline the importance of the cooperation between the official side in Canada and also the private network that they have in this situation. So they want to give that message out to everybody that is helping out, that they appreciate the support enormously.
Dyerson says Canadian police gave them data from Schotelek's GPS device. It placed him near the Hayes River, about 4.5 kilometers from York Factory, as of last Thursday afternoon. Mounties say they're working to send officers there to help with a shoreline search now. A Winnipeg convicted child sex offender can return to the community, but under new conditions. Daryl Ackman was sent to prison in 2016 for offenses related to sexual assault, child sexual abuse material, and sex trafficking. He had posted videos of women and teenage girls online under the name Mr. Jets TV and exploited girls in the sex trade. According to a written decision by the Parole Board of Canada, the now 55-year-old was released from Stony Mountain Institution last September, but he was rearrested in March for violating the conditions of his release. The Parole Board said Ackman's behavior had deteriorated because he became focused on building a music career. Ackman apologized and shared an updated release plan with the board last month. He is under the same conditions as before, but now must abstain from drugs and alcohol and also take a certain medication. And finally, it's been a frustrating summer for young athletes, coaches, and parents. Many games, practices, and sporting events have been canceled due to the worst wildfire season on record in Manitoba. Hector Vergara is the executive director of Manitoba Soccer Association. He says health and safety is a top priority.
The reality is that there's a safety issue with the weather conditions that we had with the wildfires, that obviously the air quality isn't at the level that we need it to be in order for us to play in a safe manner. So there's been a lot of cancellations.
He says indoor sport facilities in short supply in the province, and there should be more infrastructure spending for those facilities. Many organizations are left wondering how they might have to adapt to what could become a persistent wildfire reality. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Well, it is time for our regional forecast and to have a look at what's going on in traffic. Let's actually look at traffic first. Because of the Canadian Elite Basketball finals that are happening here in Winnipeg, there's a whole bunch of downtown closures that are going to start today. So watch out on Carleton, on Hargrave, on Graham, on Edmonton. To this morning's commute, though, Waverley and Bison Drive, lights are out. Treat that as an intersection, as an always stop this morning, and expect some delays. We also have, as Matt mentioned off the top, some power outages through Minto and through the River Heights area. So 788-3093 if you need to update anything on the power outages or on the morning commute. We'd love it if you give us a call. That is the traffic line, and Corey will pass it along if we need to on air here. Otherwise, on your Thursday morning, let's get into our regional forecast here. We had a lot of rain overnight. Matt was playing the sounds of that rain that continues to come down, thunder and lightning. And we continue, while we have that severe thunderstorm watch that's ended now, we do continue with the rainfall warning that is for part of northern Manitoba, including Thompson. You could see 50 to 70 millimeters of rain throughout today, tonight, and tomorrow. For today, let's start in Winnipeg. Mostly cloudy, 17 degrees. Pretty gusty winds out there, northeast at 53. We are on the other side of the storms or showers this morning for a moment in downtown Winnipeg. We'll see what happens the rest of the day. We remain with a 60% chance it's going to rain on us again. Later this afternoon, it should clear. And then once again into tonight, we're going to have those strong winds gusting 30 to 50. Our high in Winnipeg is 25 degrees with humidex going to feel like 31. Clear into tonight, and then tomorrow a sunny day ahead for Winnipeg. Brandon, very similar to here. Right now you're sitting at 19 degrees under cloud cover. And in that city, a chance of showers late this morning, risk of a thunderstorm. Should clear this afternoon. Your high 24 with humidex 29. And as I mentioned, similar across the south. So Brandon, tonight clear, tomorrow sunny. And finally up in Thompson, I already mentioned how heavy the rain is going to continue to be. It's mostly cloudy now in Thompson at 7:37 a.m. It is 16 degrees, and you're going to have a risk of a thunderstorm late this morning. 20 to 30 millimeters expected in the system to start, a high 19. And then tonight that rain remains heavy. Risk of a thunderstorm with it, and 15 to 25 more millimeters. Tomorrow, more rain in the north, so 10 to 20 millimeters. So I've been saying Mother Nature's late, but at least that rain is falling. So that is happening across northern Manitoba. Give us a call here. As I mentioned, if you have any updates on anything, that number again is 788-3093. Well, up next on the show, imagine being a child and looking at your home and family, but somehow inside still always having to ask yourself, when will I be taken away? That is a question that our next guest asked herself many times throughout her life and her childhood. Brittany Penner is a practicing physician today. She's also an author. She's also Métis and was adopted by a Mennonite family here in Manitoba when she was born. She had little knowledge about where she came from, which left her with those questions that I mentioned, and often more questions than answers about her identity and who she was. Now she shares that and more in a memoir. She tells her story in Children Like Us, a Métis woman's memoir of family, identity, and walking herself home. I love that phrase, walking herself home. Brittany's in studio with us to talk more about the book. Good morning to you.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Your writing is so accessible. The way you write with these snapshots of a date, a camcorder, a picture. I felt like I was sitting in your living room with your family.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why did you want to share? Why was this the right time for you to share your story?
I think it was the right time, partly because I had the time in terms of my practice opening up. I was no longer doing overnight call shifts, so I wasn't chronically sleep deprived. So I could dedicate some of my time to other things that I loved. And then it just felt on a society and cultural level, on a large scale, that it is time for more of our stories to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to launch right into questions, but I'm scared I'm going to ask you about something that you plan to read about. So do you have a passage you're going to share with us?
I do.
Okay. So why don't we go right there?
Sure.
Because my fear is I'm going to start talking about the book. Yeah. So let's hear some of the writing first. Why have you chosen this particular passage, or do you want to talk about that after you read it?
I'll talk about it now. I chose it because it is the kind of the opener of the book, and it sets the grounding for kind of what's to come, and it to me, at least as a reader, asks a lot of questions, and I love it that was what I was trying to do with the book, at least, was to open it by setting a scene but also asking questions within the scene.
Live on CBC, this is author Brittany Penner reading from her book Children Like Us.
It begins with a child. Or perhaps it begins with the pregnancy of a teenage girl, or with a couple deemed medically infertile, waiting year after year after year for that coveted call from Child and Family Services. Or maybe it all begins long before any of that. This story, like so many others, reaches back to a time when European settlers colonized this land and deemed its people, my people, savages, a problem. An Indian problem. Regardless, now there is a child over whom guardianship must be determined, and to whom this child should belong is a very real question. My entrance into this world is a quiet farewell song whispered into hospital corridors. No relatives flocked to my mother's side, anxiously awaiting their turn to hold me, welcoming me into the family. My birth is one of closed doors and shuttered windows. The two of us leave the hospital, my mother and I, through different doors, into different worlds. She steps out, no longer calling herself a mother. I am carried out in the arms of a social worker, a ward of the province, a daughter of the government, a child yet to be gifted a name that will stay.
I'm going to fast forward, and here's why. Because people know you're a physician. So now they've heard your entrance into the world, as written by you.
Mm-hmm.
Later in this book, you talk about being in hospital in Winnipeg, tending as a physician, and you're tending to women who are having children. One of them who is surrounded, friends, family, and love, as you write, and another who is under a birth alert at a time when we saw birth alerts in this province. What was that like for you?
At the time, it was a lot of body symptoms in terms of feeling a lot of tension in my body and a lot of chaos internally and a lot of just feeling very lost and confused. And I didn't know why. I couldn't link why my body was having these experiences with, this is medically, it's this and this and this. And you have to use, if this happens, then you use a vacuum. And if this happens, then we maybe do an episiotomy, yada, yada. And so I was, at the time, having a very hard time reconciling my body reaction to the actual medical reality
that was in front of you.
Yeah. And yet it was the reality of the Indigenous family essentially being ripped apart at the moment they are formed.
You grew up, as we mentioned, in a Mennonite household in a town here in Manitoba, adopted. We learned in the book very quickly that you had 21 foster siblings all before your 7th birthday.
Yeah.
And my heart broke because you write about them and you're sort of hearing about, your sibling relationships. And then I could feel speaking of your body, I could feel your emotions when all of a sudden they're being taken away.
Yeah.
Right? Brothers and sisters coming and going.
Yeah.
When you write about feeling like you were constantly going to be taken away, does that feeling, even though obviously you're a grown woman, but does that still stay with you somewhere?
Yeah, it does. It lives in my body. It really does.
How do you describe your journey looking for your identity?
I would describe it as wading into waters that I have no idea what's in the water, and I don't know if the water is going to be cold or warm, and then you get in, and it's not what you expected, and your toes feel funny, and it's foreign waters, and yet something feels familiar. And so essentially it's like venturing into a familiar territory that should and yet should not feel familiar, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's confusing.
In terms of the journey in this book, and I hope I'm not sharing too much, but you do connect with your birth family,
my birth mother,
your mother, pardon me, and how did it turn out compared to how maybe you imagined it might? I
tried as much as I could to mentally prepare that it could be anything. It could turn out in any possible way, and I think that helped. And yet it was still very different. I remember during the time kind of not lamenting, but telling people, there's no manual for this. I wish there was a manual for this. I wish there was something telling me that I was doing it right, or that we were doing it right, or that this was supposed to happen. Or there was a movie years ago with Michelle Pfeiffer where her young son gets kidnapped. And years later, she realizes he's still alive and lives nearby. And her son ends up coming to live back with them. And there was a scene where he's having pizza and he's drinking it with milk. And it was this moment where no one in the family drinks milk with pizza, but he does because he picked it up from the family with whom he was raised. And it was this moment of he's home but not home kind of feeling.
You had that pull when you actually were, I'm going to not quite get this right, you'll correct me, but you were visiting community and you were somehow felt this cultural connection, even though that was the first time maybe that you've been exposed and surrounded by Indigenous culture. Where were you?
Like the physical community? It was, if you're talking about when I was in Wabsamong, it's a community, it's a reservation 45 minutes or so outside of Kenora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did that feel like? You write about it.
That felt like a little bit of, it felt like meeting people that I somehow loved before even knowing who they were, and meeting a community I loved before ever stepping foot on there, if that makes sense.
You have a request to readers before they even start this book and open up your story. Why was it important to make that request, and what do you ask of them?
My request was to remain open. I think with so many things, we come in with biases and we come in with preconceived notions and ideas of what something will give us when we watch a movie, read a book, especially with my memoir. And I think sometimes we're aware of some of what we're expecting, and I think other times we're maybe not aware of it. And my request was just to be open to the story itself, to be open to maybe seeing things a little bit differently than you have your entire life, to be open to seeing yourself differently, and maybe even having compassion for parts of yourself that you have long ago abandoned. And so it was just kind of this call to be open to not only the book, but to all of our stories.
It's beautifully told, as I said. George and his little bow tie is going to stay with me for a long while. Brittany, thank you very much for being with us today. I know you're launching the book September 5th, and we'll invite everybody to go and be part of that.
Thank you so much.
That is Brittany Penner with us, the author of Children Like Us, a Métis woman's memoir of family identity and walking herself home. She's also a practicing family physician, as we mentioned, here in Manitoba, and you can get the book now, by the way. There's also going to be the book release. I mentioned the date, September 5th. It is at McNally. It's at 7 o'clock, and you can head to McNallyRobinson.com if you want more information. 11 minutes to 8 o'clock right now on CBC, 17 degrees in Winnipeg, and up next on the show. As we've been hearing in the news, summer coming to a close, and a lot of people asking how it's been, but maybe you felt it's been too hot, cold, too short, too long, but we can all agree it's been too smoky. It's been one of the worst summers on record for wildfires, and that also means for smoke. And athletes have been particularly affected. CBC's Justin Fiaconi spoke with some young soccer players about what it's been like to miss out on some of that outdoor game time.
Well, it's really disappointing because normally we have like a fun time. Even if we lose, we have a fun time like playing with each other.
I've noticed that. Can't run as fast since we haven't been at practice in a long time.
Justin also spoke with Hector Vergara about this, executive director of the Manitoba Soccer Association.
Well, they're frustrated. They're angry. They wish it could do something different. But the reality is that unless the weather conditions change, we have to keep it safe for the players. And I don't think people are angry at the organizations. They're just frustrated in general. Well, I think all the sports are concerned, and I think we're all worried about what's going to happen, and we all hope that the governments are going to work on some sort of plan to try to minimize the wildfire situation and do whatever it takes to be able to reduce it. But we also know that Mother Nature is Mother Nature, and at the end of the day, you're going to have them. So how we cope with that in the future is we obviously will have to be looking at not necessarily changing policy in the sense of it is dangerous at a certain level, and that danger is not going to change. Simply because we want it to change, they're not going to change, and the policy can't just be amended to allow to play soccer or any sport when the conditions are poor. So the reality is that you have to look for other options. Where can we play? When can we play? Do we have to go do we have to go indoor to indoor facilities? Is that even feasible with all the sports? Imagine all the sports want to do the same thing. So what indoor facilities are you going to use? So these are the kind of things that we have to look at, and obviously we're concerned, but at the same time we kind of have to be looking for solutions going forward.
space. How do we improve that? Should we improve that? Let's find out what Janet McMahon has to say about this. She's president of Sports Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what are you hearing from athletes about in this province about how smoke and space has been impacting them?
Well, I think Hector summed up really well. I think people are frustrated, and there's so much indecision around, will a game be canceled? Will it go? What is the impact? So, and they're losing out on just physical activity and their own mental health.
Where do we sit with space in this in Winnipeg, just to start with, and then we can extend out across the province? But it seems to me that the issue with places to play before the wildfires was already something we were covering here at CBC.
For sure. It's very difficult to find indoor spaces for all the sports. A lot of our facilities were built in 1967 and haven't kept up. So it is a challenge. Things are solidly booked all the time.
Are there sports that are particularly affected more than others?
Well, with the wildfires, for sure. I mean, it's been the outdoor team sports mostly. I mean, some of it depends on the intensity and duration of the activity, but certainly in June, July, softball, baseball, soccer were probably the most impacted. And now we're starting the football season.
If we could build another indoor facility, would it be a multi-use complex? Where would you put it?
Now, that's a great question. There's so many levels of government and players involved, but it doesn't make sense anymore not to build something that's adaptable for all kinds of activities.
I understand that obviously places like BC are ahead of us on this, dealing with wildfire and smoke. Have you seen changes in those provinces in terms of facilities and how they're thinking about outdoor sport?
Well, certainly they have been impacted the most, but they've had a good year this year. So we're trying to use best practices that we see from them. I think the entire country is lacking in sport and recreation infrastructure. It's something that hasn't been a priority. So we're all struggling to find spaces and places for people to participate.
How concerned are you that what we're seeing with smoke and the impact on canceled games and such is going to be our new normal for athletes in this province?
Well, hopefully that's not the case, but definitely, I mean, again, the safety and health of our athletes is really important. It's also really important that our kids are physically active. So the impacts are duly, from both sides of the coin, because we want kids to be active and participating. On the other hand, we don't want them to be affected long-term with their health. So, I mean, I think we need to be adaptable, and I think sport is resilient, and we'll find some ways to make sure that we can carry on with these activities.
If indoor options aren't there, are there ways to adapt the way that outdoor sports are played in these smoky conditions?
Well, I think some sports have already done that. Like, when we have weather conditions, they shorten games. They, some games are played indoors if they can find that facility. But, we're going to have to see how as we move forward. This is a new situation for us. And it's ever fluid. Some days the smoke isn't bad, and 2 hours later it's really bad. So the monitoring is really important. But I think what it is I think we all need to work together to find solutions.
When it comes to space, I'm also sort of, people would have heard us say on the air, the Leela Indoor Soccer Complex, multi-sport complex rather, in Garden City was one of the big places where evacuees were housed because they came from communities and had to be somewhere. So that also obviously adds to the pressure. I just want to highlight that because it's not just the smoke, right? Because you need space for the people to come.
For sure. Yeah. Anytime we're displaced from our facilities, it's challenging.
You mentioned aging facilities. How much would it help if the maintenance were brought up? Are there places that you could use as space that are just maybe too aged or dilapidated for you guys to go in and book things there?
Yeah, there's many facilities that we've been band-aiding and renovating over multiple generations, and they're just not state-of-the-art, and they are just not suitable. A lot of them got some safety concerns, so definitely we're looking at new builds and not refurbishing as we continue to do that.
And would those spaces be, can you give us some examples? Like, would they be recreation centers, or can you give us some examples of aging facilities?
Well, the best one I can probably talk about is the Pan Am Pool. It was built in 1967 for the Pan Am Games. It's an amazing competitive pool, but there's lots of challenges with the facility. It's dated, it's expensive, and I don't think we'd ever build a pool like that again. So that's just one example in Winnipeg. I mean, on the other hand, we're seeing today Southeast Event Center in Steinbach opening. So there are some positives out there. It's just, again, your point about what do we need, where do we need it, and how do we afford it and be able to actually operate on a long-term basis.
Just last, obviously, we have Manitoba athletes in Newfoundland right now for the Canada Games. What have you heard about how they've been impacted by the fires out there? I know we checked in last week. There have been some cancellations and such, but how are things going now?
This week is better. I think the fire around St. John's has been contained. They haven't had to move or change anything. And obviously, they're monitoring that very closely. So for the Phase 2 athletes, they're doing fine.
Thanks very much for being with us this morning, Janet. Appreciate you outlining some of what we might need to do in the future.
For sure. Great. Have a great day.
You too. That's Janet McMahon with us live. She's president of Sport Manitoba. All right, Matt Humphrey is here to update other news stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Now it appears there are more power outages around Winnipeg. More than 500 customers are without power in the Victoria Crescent area between River Road and Dunkirk. That's on top of the roughly 600 customers without power along Grant Avenue and River Heights. And there are still around 300 without power in the Minto area of Winnipeg. The latest update from Hydro says the power should be back on sometime this morning. It looks like the latest estimation date is around 10 a.m. For those outages.
All right, they continue to push that time. We'll see. Thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
We do have some new things in traffic here northbound St. Mary's before Fermor. Illegally parked car blocking the curb lane, causing some big backup, so stay left. Waverly and Bison Drive, lights are out there. Treat as a four-way stop. Portage and Woodlawn, there's a motor vehicle collision. Eastbound middle lane, use caution passing if that van's not moved yet. I saw that on the traffic management camera. Also, Edmonton, Carleton, Hargrave, closed from St. Mary to Portage. That starts today and runs through the 25th through the weekend for the Canadian Elite Basketball Championships that are happening in Winnipeg. So Graham from Donald to Edmonton is also closed because of that. So closures through downtown. We have a rainfall warning in northern Manitoba. In Winnipeg, the rain stopped for the moment in the downtown. Lots of sunshine at 17. It's going to be sticky, high 25, Humidex 31, and possibly more rain returning this afternoon before it's sunny into tomorrow. Coming up, we have our Gen Z panel in. Gone are the days of Google searches and lengthy library visits. For Gen Z, the future is AI. How are they using it? Do they love it or loathe it? Stay tuned for our panel.
Today on Q.
Having an intervention sucks. Basically just a bunch of people telling you everything that's wrong with you to your face.
I'm Jill Deacon in for Tom Power. Comedian Andrew Barr is about to record his first comedy special, The 13th Hour. He'll talk about his decision to spend the 12 hours beforehand running on a treadmill as a metaphor for his battle with drugs and alcohol.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's message was clear. The use of dogs and cats in lab research is going to change. But how does this impact the bigger conversation around how animals are used in medical research? That's coming up on The
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israel says it has begun the first phases of a military offensive in Gaza City, and troops have established a foothold on the outskirts. Hundreds of Palestinians are leaving their homes and moving northwest. Margaret Evans has the latest.
Israeli strikes hitting Gaza in the early hours of the morning, drowning out international condemnation as Israel says it is proceeding with the promised ground offensive in Gaza City, the Strip's largest urban center, or what's left of it. A spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces says Israeli troops already control the city's outskirts, and call-up notices have been issued to 60,000 reservists for an operation expected to begin in earnest in September. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres added his voice to those warning of catastrophic implications for Palestinian civilians.
It is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
The Israeli decision, which it says is aimed at rooting out what remains of Hamas and rescuing hostages, has dampened optimism that a 60-day ceasefire might be agreed. Hamas said it would accept the agreement. Israel has yet to formally respond. In an interview with the Associated Press on Wednesday, Washington's pro-settler ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, blamed failed ceasefire talks on countries like Canada that have recently indicated they plan to recognize a Palestinian state. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Explosions are heard in the skies over Kyiv overnight. Ukraine's Air Force says Moscow launched its third largest aerial assault this year. It says many of the 570 drones and dozens of missiles were intercepted, but at least one person was killed in the western city of Lviv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is accusing Russia of charging ahead like there are no efforts to end the war. The U.S. is currently leading those discussions, and Zelensky says he wants details on security guarantees for his country before any meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. German prosecutors say police have arrested a Ukrainian citizen suspected of damaging the Nord Stream pipelines. Those underwater pipelines bring Russian natural gas to Germany, and they were damaged by a series of explosions in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. The suspect is believed to be one of the coordinators of that operation. He was arrested in Italy. Ukraine has rejected suggestions it may have ordered the attack. State senators in Texas are voting today on a controversial measure. It redraws the state's political map to favor Republicans. The Texas lower house approved the plan last night. The CBC's Lisa Sheng is in Washington with more. And Lisa, what happened during that vote?
Marcia, after 8 hours of debate and deliberate delay by the Democrats, Texas lawmakers approved these new redrawn, blatantly partisan congressional maps. And that will likely create 5 new Republican seats that would solidify the party's U.S. House majority here in D.C. ahead of next year's midterm elections. And remember, U.S. President Donald Trump had requested this gerrymander. And so if you remember, the dramatic lead up to all of this, in an effort to thwart or delay this plan, the Democrats fled the state. They went to Illinois in order to stall the vote. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, had ordered them arrested. And when the Democrats returned this week, the Speaker had the House chamber doors locked and ordered a police escort so they couldn't leave again. So in opposition to that, several Democratic lawmakers decided to sleep in the chamber rather than have that escort. Here's Jean Wu, the chair of the state's Democratic caucus.
You've watched us take all of this, do all of this for the people, for all Texans, for all Americans. We are standing up and fighting against those who seek to take the American dream from us.
Now, Wu has vowed they'll challenge the map in court when it's officially passed. The Texas State Senate is expected to vote as soon as tonight, and then it's over to Governor Abbott for his promised signature.
Now, other Americans are fighting this too, especially California. What's happening there?
Yeah, this is only the start, Marcia. California state legislature is also expected to vote later today on its newly redrawn congressional map. They're trying to flip 5 Republican-held seats over to the Democrats, and that's to counterbalance the Texas vote.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Lisa Sheng, reporting from Washington, D.C. Brazilian federal police say ex-president Jair Bolsonaro may have been looking for political asylum in Argentina. They say they found a draft of a letter to the Argentine president on Bolsonaro's phone. It is unclear if Javier Milei ever received that request for asylum. The document is part of a final police report formally accusing Bolsonaro and his son of working to avoid the law. Bolsonaro is due to stand trial for plotting a coup in September if convicted. Jair Bolsonaro could spend 40 years in prison. Critics in New Brunswick are questioning whether a proposed natural gas plant has the Indigenous buy-in it claims. The plant has been controversial on a number of fronts. It will be built by an American company. Its executives say the plant will be partly Mi'kmaq-owned. But as Jacques Poitras reports, it now appears that critical First Nations investment is only hypothetical.
North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council is a minority equity holder in the project.
That claim by pro-energy executive Landon Tessner at a July online meeting is a calling card for the proposed 400-megawatt natural gas plant.
All of those discussions were ongoing with the North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council, which ultimately resulted in their equity participation in the project.
New Brunswick's power utility needs the extra electricity the plant would provide, but there's growing opposition, including to the choice of Pro-Energy, a U.S. company, to build it. In response, Premier Susan Holt has pointed to the supposed Indigenous role.
It will be co-owned by a group of different First Nations, a group of different New Brunswick First Nations that have an ownership.
So far, though, there is no equity investment by any First Nation.
So I think there was a step missed.
Pabineau First Nation Chief Terry Richardson says the Mi'kmaq agency working with the U.S. company may have moved too quickly. Another group representing all Mi'kmaq bands will run its own rights impact assessment to determine consent and then maybe investment. Richardson supports the plant but says the process has to be right.
If we're looking at nation-building projects, it's important that we have that down, how we're doing this consultation and how we're moving forward so we don't end up with stumbling blocks that cost money and cause bad feelings.
The U.S. company refused to comment. Jacques Poitras, CBC News, Fredericton.
A potentially deadly tick-borne illness is now in Canada. Rocky Mountain spotted fever has been more common in the United States. As Jayla Bernstein reports, it is treatable if caught early.
Don't stop enjoying the great outdoors, but do take precautions. That's the advice of McGill University biologist Virginie Millien.
It's not too complicated to protect ourselves from tick bites. Proper clothing, the DEET. Then when you get back home, tick check.
Human-driven climate change means ticks are surviving farther north, and Lyme disease isn't the only threat they carry. This week, a case of Rocky Mountain spotted fever was reported in Quebec. Doctors suspect that infection was picked up in southern Ontario or Quebec's eastern townships. There have also been cases in British Columbia and a cluster of infections in dogs linked to Ontario's Long Point Provincial Park on Lake Erie.
This is sadly not surprising. We know that this infection occurs south of the border. We know that tick populations are changing and they have an expanding geography.
Dr. Isaac Bogosh is an infectious diseases specialist with the Toronto General Hospital.
It's a very serious infection and it can result in death if it's not identified quickly and treated quickly. The treatment is very straightforward. It's an antibiotic, and it's a commonly used antibiotic called doxycycline.
The signs of Rocky Mountain spotted fever are right in the name. Fever, headache, nausea, and a rash, usually pinpoint spots or red splotches. If you've been in the woods and have those symptoms, you should consult a doctor. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, a loud night over a lot of Manitoba and Winnipeg. Thunder and lightning and rain just pounding down. It's still raining this morning in Barons River and a thunderstorm up in Norway House, though it's clear in Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcus, our studios in downtown Winnipeg, and we're live here on the morning show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. In a moment, we're going to hear from Corey about what's been going on with traffic a lot, and also from Matt Humphrey with updates in our news center. And we're watching a whole bunch of power outages this morning as well. So about 600 people in River Heights, some in the Minto area in Winnipeg. So we'll get some updates in a moment. This half hour on the show, our Generation Z panel is back. Sorry, everyone. I'm not making Gen X proud right now. We're going to be talking about AI this morning. We have our panelists. All three of them are in studio with us this morning. Some say they have deep concerns about it. Others were early adopters. So stay tuned. It's on a lot of people's minds, the use of AI in our life and in our schools. And so we're going to have our panel weigh in on all of this. Right now, though, as I mentioned, Matt Humphrey is in our news department, and he's here with the very latest. Good morning.
Good morning. Just to expand on what Marcy touched on there, hundreds of Manitoba Hydro customers are without power this morning. We're seeing large outages along Grant Avenue and River Heights in the area of Winnipeg. Hundreds of customers are affected in the Minto area, as Marcy mentioned, and more than 500 are without power in the Victoria Crescent area, just north of Abinogi-Meekina. Hydro says crews are working on it with the power restoration estimate within the next few hours. A line of severe thunderstorms hit hard across the prairies last night. All along the storm front, we have reports of significantly sized hail, ranging from a nickel size to toonie size. We'll have more at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Well, there's a difference in temperature this morning, Corey. I've got 14 at the Forks and right around 20 at the airport. So.
I have 21.
Well, that's only a degree off of what the airport's saying. What do we know about the actual day? What's it going to bring?
Yeah, so it is going to be warm up to about 25 today throughout the morning. I mean, I think there was a severe thunderstorm watch earlier, but now that has been lifted for pretty much all of the province now. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's going to clear throughout the day here in Winnipeg, and then with a high of 25, and it's going to dip down overnight to 13. Nice and chilly, but a bit gusty though, 30 gusting to 50 to kind of throughout the day. So heads up there. I also just want to give folks a heads up about if you're up in Thompson today, there is a rainfall warning in effect though for the whole area, for that whole area of northern Manitoba there around Thompson. You could expect potentially 50 to 70 millimeters of rain between now and Friday. So rain boots, rain jacket, or you can just embrace it and just wear your swimsuit around because it's going to be wet out there. That wet out there. So as for your commute, though, let's turn to that real quick. Lots of things going on. Heard from Tim earlier. Northbound St. Mary's just before Fermor. There's an illegally parked car in the curb lane. Keep left to get around that. Also, northbound Waverley and Bison. All morning, the lights have been flashing red, and we've been getting calls about that, so that still is an issue. As well, Porridge and Woodlawn eastbound in kind of the right in the curb lane or so, those kind of a couple of those curb middle lane. There's been a car all morning blocking that. It's looks like it's kind of on its like kind of pointing sideways a little bit like that. So look out for that. And finally, this is kind of good-ish traffic news in some sense because Carleton, Edmonton, Hargrave, they're all closed from St. Mary to Portage because of the CEBL Championship Finals, Go Sea Bears, happening this weekend, starting tomorrow until Sunday. So those will be closed, including Graham from Edmonton to Donald as well. So lots of closures downtown, but that means lots of foot traffic down there as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you see anything else, though, going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, typically when you have a question, you might turn to Google. I know I still do. If you're old-fashioned, you might pay the public library a visit and spend hours flipping through the pages. But more and more young Manitobans are turning to artificial intelligence to solve problems, which means for Gen Zers, finding the right answer often looks and sounds like this. Here's an example. What are the main ways that Gen Z uses AI?
Great question. Here's a clear breakdown of the main ways Gen Z is using AI right now, based on 2024 to 2025 research and surveys. Number 1, education and productivity. Homework help, summaries, explanations, solving problems, brainstorming essays, project ideas, or study guides. Language support, translations, grammar checks, rewriting, career prep, resumes, cover letters, interview practice.
So that answer goes on, and of course it is AI generated. Let's find out what real Gen Zers have to say about how they use it. The voice was ChatGPT that we were listening to there. Now, it did answer, but of course, is that the right answer? To have some insights on our panel today, 20-year-old freelance filmmaker Bridget Clemente is with us. Hi, Bridget.
Hi, good morning.
Nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you as well.
We also have Kyler Zanelli, 21-year-old Asper business student. Nice to see you as well, Kyler.
Hello, hello.
And in person, we promise, real people here, 19-year-old Red River student Riley Gerard. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you as well.
Hi.
So you guys all say that you have some concerns about AI, but you all use AI. How do you use it, Kyler? What's your relationship with AI?
Well, I use it as a tool. It's helpful in situations where you can't really get something out of your head, but you just need to get it out fast. So it's a great summary tool. It's a great idea generation tool in some cases, as well as it's just a great, get it out, just get a rough idea so you can come back to it later.
And were you an early adopter?
I was. Thank you for asking that. Yeah. I remember being there when it just started because I thought this thing's really funny because I can get it to say things in people's styles, like a president's style or a prime minister's style, how they would talk. And I thought that was hilarious to me at the time.
Got it. Do you still do that, or do you have new cautions about using it and stuff?
Well, I would use it. One of the most times I would use it would be when I'm trying to practice for something, because it's a great back and forth and grading you tool. Like, it'll always give you an option that you can use in the style that's best communicated to you. So things like that, I'll use it, but not very much to make me laugh anymore. I think it's a little bit weird.
Got it. Okay. Let's let you guys weigh in on this. So Riley, what about for you, AI?
I think I use AI on about a weekly basis, so
Okay.
not quite every day. And I use it most frequently to help me understand something. So frequently if there's appliances I don't know how to use, then I'll use AI to help me kind of a step-by-step, how do I use this? Or if there's a problem or a word or just something I don't understand, I like that AI can tailor make a solution that I understand or explain something in depth that I understand.
Can you give us the appliance example? What's in your head? What are you thinking about?
I had to help fix the pool pump this summer at home, and
Okay.
I used AI this summer to help me understand how to fix that, and
So
it worked.
What did you do? Was it a chat GPT ask a question of?
I just said, I'm having trouble. This is my problem. And I said, this is the model. This is the year, the make. This is the issue that I'm having. Can you walk me through in a step-by-step, easy to understand way to solve the problem? And it worked.
How about for you, Bridget? What's the role of it in your life, AI?
I would say I use AI once in a while. Like as a filmmaker myself, I would feel like we usually use it. Let's say if we have writer's block, it's easy to kind of I guess
you were mentioning brainstorming too.
Yeah, brainstorming ideas, not necessarily copy what's on what the prompt says, but kind of make an idea out of what the prompt has already given, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's a creative tool for you.
I would say so. Yeah, in a way.
How often do you use it? Do you use it in your life otherwise, outside of being a filmmaker?
I would say so. I would say not, but it's kind of hard to strain away from AI because nowadays when you search something online, it's the first thing that pops up. That AI summary is the first thing that pops up. You go on social media and you have AI chatbots talking to you. So I feel it's kind of hard to strain away, but it's also easy to not use,
Yeah. So all of you talked about how you use it, and there's some positives in there, and then also saying that it's hard to get away from it. But what are the negatives, or what are the worries you have about it?
Well, I feel very, very strongly that it takes away the human experience of looking for something, and this is going to make people more likely to give up easier. So if you don't have that search and that difficulty and that journey and that human experience, that process to get somewhere, eventually you're just going to give up when you can't get there right away because it lets you get there right away, or maybe makes you think you got there right away.
And in terms of how you guys feel about it, the cautions around it, Riley, what do you think about, what worries you about it?
See, my biggest concern with AI is information and disinformation. I think that, AI, it gets its information by reading the web. And so if anyone posts something enough, then AI gives you that information back. I'm in school studying journalism, and I believe in ethical journalism and journalist practice. And I think that using AI, it denotes that, and the amount of people that have told me that you can just use AI to write an article, it's I disagree strongly with that. I think that the human touch is really the strength in writing and things like that. So I think that information and division that's caused as a result of misinformation and disinformation I think AI contributes to that.
It's playing a role.
Yeah, exactly.
Bridget wants to get in, and then Kyler's hands up. So Bridget, you go.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely stunts humans like problem solving skills, I would say so, and also as well as literacy skills. Like nowadays people use it like for easy answers that you could easily use Google for. So yeah, I feel like it definitely would stunt our problem solving skills sometime in the future if we keep using AI.
Kyler?
I got two things to say. One, while I was in school, they talked about the idea of bias from AI because specifically, if you're giving it a bunch of information to be trained on, that information, if biased, it will replicate bias. So it'll push to certain things, just like a human would. It only knows what it knows and it doesn't know what it doesn't know, right? And the second thing is, just a food for thought question here is that how much of this whole AI problem is the human problem and how much of it is actually the creation of it, because we're partly to blame because we're always picking the easiest option. And if the easiest option is AI, then what are we doing here? Right?
So the what do they say? The horse is out of the barn now, though, right? Like, so now we're at a chicken and egg argument about what came first, and you're absolutely right. So what do you do with that in the future? And you guys are the future. So what do you hope gets done with that in the future to make sure that this doesn't take off and become something that we build on the aspects that you mentioned concern you?
Well, I think that AI and ChatGPT use should still be taught in schools. I was in grade 11 when ChatGPT kind of came out, and I still remember the problems of you have to wait and can't use it because there's too many people on the server. And so I think that because AI is the future, I think that you should still be teaching AI in school because now a lot of companies use AI or use their own form of AI to help them in work. And I think that like education is supposed to prepare students for the future. So I think if AI is our future, the best foot forward is teaching students how to ethically use AI, knowing what it can do and what it can't do. And exercises that we do in school is identifying the difference between a human written article and an AI written article and seeing the differences. And I think that those are, good methods to teach AI and how it can be used correctly and the dangers of it.
I wonder in the creative space what you think the future is, Bridget, given that you're a filmmaker.
Well, it's a little scary, I would say. Like there's this kind of like phenomenon of like, oh, AI is going to take over our jobs, and that is definitely still in the back of like a lot of creatives. For AI to be built, I feel like it's kind of like it takes off from other artists to create a prompt, right? So hopefully in the future they find a way to not kind of like, I guess, like steal off or take inspiration from artists and basically create new out of other people or other artists' work, if that makes sense, right? So yeah.
And Riley, I'm pardon me, not Riley, but Kyler, I'm wondering whether or not you have a perspective on how older generations misunderstand AI use.
That's a great point, because when it comes to AI use and stuff like that, I think if you grow up with something, you're more tendency to like it more. So when it comes to AI and the newer generation versus the older generation, the older you are, the less likely you are to use it, because if you're older generation before smartphones, you didn't really get a smartphone, right? It's the adoption over the years. It's what you know and what you prefer. And so that's kind of the misinformation here. The gap here is that people who didn't grow up using it will not use it or will be less likely to use it because they have another technique of getting it. So if kids grow up with AI, they're going to use AI more frequently.
We've done a lot of conversations about AI in school, and you guys kind of addressed some of that at the beginning. So I want our last question to be about mental health. Only because ChatGPT recently added a mental health guardrails rather. This was in an effort for the tech to stop enabling unhealthy behaviors in users. What do you think when you hear that? Is that even possible?
I think it's a good idea. I think there's lots of stories of people who have had dangerous kind of encounters with AI, and I think that it's good for them to put up these mental health barriers. But I think AI in a way can kind of like be not like I don't think it contributes to mental health the best. Like I think if you're in a bit of like a creative slump and you're struggling to write or you're struggling to do something, AI is so easy, and it almost becomes like a little cliff. You take that step off of, can you write this for me? Because you're just in a bit of a mental health slump. And I think that's kind of also negatively can kind of contribute to AI is how easy AI makes things. And so it helps you fall deeper into that kind of slump. So I think that those kind of the unwritten dangers of AI.
And we haven't even talked yet about the fact that AI is always going to tell you you're great. So there's all these conversations now about if you become friends, with AI or a bot, it's always going to be on your side, which can be really good for loneliness. But on the other side, what perspective are you getting? What are your thoughts on mental health and AI?
I feel like, I agree with what Ryler said. Like, I feel like you have to take precautions, and when you're talking to ChatGPT or any AI platforms that you're using, because they're taking your side. It's not really going to give you any other perspective rather than make you feel good about how you're feeling. It's great to talk to real people. They'll give you real answers and they'll give you different perspectives. So if you are going through some sort of like mental health crisis, ChatGPT could be good, but at least also try
at
to
the point
talk
of
to people
crisis.
around.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of mental health professionals are talking about how it fits in and where those lines are as you're outlining. Kyler, last word. I'm mindful of our time here.
Okay. Well, I think that over from 2023 to 2024, the number one in 2023 use of AI was idea generation. 2024 was therapy. So there's a big connect here because people just want someone to listen to them and they want someone to agree with them. And if you don't have pushback on your ideas, you'll never know if you're wrong, or like you said, you'll never see a different perspective. And that's extremely important in mental health.
You guys are so thoughtful around all of this. That's our Gen Z panel for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Riley Gerard, as well as Bridget Clemente and Kyler Zanelli in studio. It is 8:27 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. On a rainy morning, we do have some power outages, and we do have a lot more rain coming for the north, 50 to 70 millimeters around Thompson and area, and there's a warning that comes with that. We'll check with Marjorie Dalhouse about the noon call-in before we get to our 8:30 news, but we have a little bit of music for you this morning next on CBC. Georgia Harmer has unveiled her new album. It's called Eye of the Storm, and here is the title track.
Out of the eye of the storm, there's you and I on the shore, and I hold my breath as you breathe that last. I don't know where you have gone. Take me back to when we were young. I need some clarity as to what became of me. I need to know how far to go. I don't wanna leave you alone. Just tell me this, will I amount to anything if you're still I'll keep you safe from all harm. Words I once felt were so strong.
Georgia Harmer with Eye of the Storm. We are getting into news time, so I want to leave some space for Marjorie Dalhouse to tell us what's coming up on Radio Noon, and here she is. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Well, if you're one of those people who went to a U-Pick farm, maybe you got an abundance of some produce from a farmer's market, what are you going to do with all that stuff? So we're actually going to have a food expert join us on the show today to give us some tips and ideas on what you can do, maybe some pickling, maybe some jams, with all the fresh summer produce that you gathered. So get ready to call in with your questions, comments. Maybe you have some tips for other listeners. So give us a call after 12:30.
It's a perfect day for that. We're like after the storms, or maybe in between them, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
Some time in the kitchen to make some jams and stuff. It sounds good.
Yeah, because you want to save that food. So yeah, for sure.
Look at us. Don't you say you owe me a beer when we say something
Okay,
the same
I
time?
do.
I think
Yeah.
that's the old school
Yeah.
thing. Okay, we'll do that later. Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
Between 12:30 and 1 is the call-in on Radio Noon. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. At 8:30, we're at 14 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. The severe thunderstorm watch has now ended. Good morning, I'm Matt Humphrey. Right now, Manitoba Hydro says around 5,000 customers are without power across the province, with the largest outages in Winnipeg, the Interlake, and the Parklands area between the Saskatchewan border and Lake Manitoba. Peter Chura speaks for Hydro.
High winds during that stormy weather last night and early this morning brought down lines. It brought down trees and tree branches that brought down lines. We hope to have all the power back on this morning. We're just getting out to some areas outside Winnipeg and seeing what some of the damage is. Restoration times could take a bit longer than that, but we'll keep everybody informed as best we can.
In Winnipeg, more than 500 customers are without power in the Victoria Crescent area between River Road and Dunkirk. That's on top of the roughly 600 customers without power along Grant Avenue in River Heights. There are still around 300 without power in the Minto area, meanwhile. Again, Chura says the hope is to have all the power restored by noon. A line of severe thunderstorms hit hard across the prairies last night. That's the sound of the storm just outside Oakville. There are also power outages being reported in Alberta, with power lines and transmission stations damaged. At one point, a tornado warning was triggered in and around Saskatoon. And here in Manitoba and along the entire storm front, significantly sized hail has been reported, ranging in size from a nickel to a toonie. The Progressive Conservative candidate in the Spruce Woods by-election issued another apology last night. During a debate in the hamlet of Spruce Woods near Shiloh, PC candidate Colleen Robbins said she opposes gender education in schools. Robbins said she was told some minors in Manitoba undergo gender-affirming surgery. When she was corrected and told that doesn't happen in our province, she walked it back.
My commitment I'd like to make today is to educate myself before I speak of something that I totally don't understand. And I apologize for that tonight.
Earlier this week, Robbins apologized for a pair of deleted tweets about unions and residential schools. The NDP's Ray Berthollet and Liberal Stephen Reid are also running in Spruce Woods. The by-election is on Tuesday. The search continues for a Norwegian hiker who's been missing in northern Manitoba for almost a week. Stefan Schottelijk started off on foot from Fort Severn, Ontario on July 25th, saying he would arrive in York Factory, Manitoba, last Friday. The 29-year-old never made it there. Searchers have been looking for him ever since. Christian Dierison, who speaks for the Schottelijk family, says they appreciate everyone who's pitching in to help find him. He says Schottelijk was inspired by two wildlife experts in Norway who made TV programs about Canada. Now those experts are helping search as well.
They have stepped into this project right now to raise money and to raise awareness. And I think for the family that is a big support, because for Stefan, those two has been a great inspiration, and he's kind of following in their tracks in Canada.
Now to say data from Schottelijk's GPS device placed him near the Hayes River as of last Thursday. A shoreline search is soon to be underway. In international news, the Israeli military, as you've been hearing, has launched the initial stage of a new military operation in Gaza City. Israeli troops are already said to be advancing into the outskirts, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying he's speeding up the timeline for the IDF to target all remaining Hamas strongholds, all of which has led to a statement from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres this morning.
It is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
And ahead of this new military campaign, Israel said it is calling up 60,000 reservists who are being told to be prepared to join the war by next month. And finally, the summer's wildfire season has sparked concern amongst Manitoba-based amateur sports organizations. All summer, young athletes have had their games and practices postponed or canceled. Janet McMahon is the president and CEO of Sport Manitoba.
We're very concerned. I mean, that's our number one issue, is keeping people healthy, keeping people safe, keeping people active. This could have very significant long-term effects, and I think we don't really know what they are.
McMahon says there hasn't been much dialogue with the province yet about a future for outdoor recreational sport burdened by disruptive wildfire seasons, but she says there will likely have to be more investment in indoor sporting infrastructure. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, Matt Humphrey, thank you.
Thanks for the morning, Mars.
You as well. Big thanks to our news department, Matt Humphrey, Megan Ketchison, Darren Bernhardt, and Aaron Broman out there. Our live team, May McKillop, Corey Funk, and Azika Abdelatif behind our YouTube controls. Also, in our program this morning, big thanks to the associate producers who had items on the show today. Chidi Akuma, Sierra Sanders, Shanley Vidal, and Carmen Ponto. So big thanks to everyone. And to Robin Sommerfeld and Nellie Gonzalez, who've been working hard all week to get programming to air for us as our producers. All right, last look at weather and traffic. Corey's been very busy this morning. What's up now?
Yes. Well, let's start with weather. It's at least we know it's been about 20 degrees at the airport today, and it's going to be warming up to 25 today, and but then dipping down to 13 overnight. Up in Thompson, though, that's where there's a big weather story coming your way. 50 to 70 millimeters potentially between now and the end of the day on Friday. So going to be very wet up in the north today, around the Thompson area as the big system kind of moves through the north. As for your commute, just a reminder, we heard that the St. James overpass, we got a call from turning from Route 90 onto Academy is actually flooded. So it's tough to get through there after all this rain we had. As well, all morning, Waverly and Bison, the lights have been flashing red.
All right, lots on the list. Thanks, Corey.
Oh, yeah, and closures downtown for the CBL Championships.
Yeah, for a good reason, though, for basketball.
Yes, so Edmonton, Hargrave, Carleton, that area, close from St. Mary's to Portage.
Very cool. All around Canada Life Centre where it's happening. The Sea Bears in action tomorrow night. Take care, be well, everybody. Go Blue tonight. They're not at home. They're in Montreal. We'll see how they do. And the Current's coming up next right here on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for listening to today's morning show on 89.3 FM, and we hope you're back with us again tomorrow. Take care. Stay dry.